So hi guys, I'm Angie Rasmussen. We are here to watch the the CDC Director nomination hearing, as well as the ASPR nomination hearing. I'm sorry, I'm a little disorganized this morning because I wasn't actually going to even do this. I wasn't feeling super hot right today. But you know what? I'm here and we're ready to go ahead and watch this. Let me just get myself situated here. And I apologize also because I have a little dog who is sitting under my feet and trying to lick me constantly, and it's really annoying. So I'm just trying to get myself together here so that we can go ahead and watch this exciting broadcast of this hearing. So I don't know what that was. That was like a roll call. I think for this, the Help Committee for the Senate is meeting today to talk about Dr. Erica Schwartz, who is the nominee for CDC Director. Just to give you a little history on the CDC Director, refresh your memory a bit, perhaps. About a year ago, at the end of August, RFK Jr. fired CDC Director Susan Moneras, who, from everybody's accounts of this, served in that role for a very short period of time, but served with integrity and was fired because she refused to essentially rubber stamp all of RFK Jr.'s anti-vax bullshit. So we haven't had a CDC director since then. Jay Bhattacharya, the NIH director, who is a health economist with zero experience in disease outbreak response or anything else that really is within the CDC's purview other than health economics and I guess technically epidemiology. Jay Bhattacharya has been serving as the acting director of the CDC, even though technically there is no acting director of the CDC because he was in that role a little too long, and you're actually not allowed to be in that role forever. But he's just continued to call himself the acting director of the CDC. So he's like the acting director of the CDC. Anyways, finally, they found somebody who is just, I mean, really, she seems qualified. She's not an anti-vaxxer. She doesn't seem crazy. She's served in the Coast Guard, has a record of distinguished military service. She seems, by all accounts, to be highly qualified. She was previously the deputy surgeon general. So, you know, it's pretty exciting. I think that we finally are going to have a CDC director, and it's also pretty exciting that it's somebody who's actually competent. So that's a refreshing change of pace. And I do think that that is because the CDC is effectively not functional. So it doesn't, to some degree, matter who's in charge of it. But I think, you know, for the sake of the midterms and things like that, they are going to want to have a CDC director who most people aren't going to look at and be like, this person's totally, completely unqualified. So, you know, that's where we're at with the CDC director. And I'm going to go ahead and put the screen back up here when the committee comes back in. Right now, there's nothing going on, and it's just a short recess, according to the Senate's website. So I'll put that back up there. Now, the other guy that I want to talk about is this is a dual hearing. It is two people. It is Erica Schwartz, the director for the CDC's nominee. And then it is a guy named Sean Kaufman, who has a master's in public health. He's, I think, kind of a biosafety infection control guy. He's nominated for the administrator of strategic preparedness and response, so ASPR. Now, ASPR, a lot of people don't necessarily know what ASPR is. ASPR is essentially the part of HHS, our health agency that is prepared for different emergencies. So ASPR maintains, for example, the Strategic National Stockpile of medications and vaccines. ASPR is critically involved in terms of making sure that we have hospital capacity and making sure that we're really running our pandemic preparedness plan for the U.S. Now, this ASPR, this guy, Sean Kaufman, was nominated, and he's been serving in various sort of like undersecretary or deputy kind of administrator roles in HHS. He doesn't like vaccines very much. And in the past, he has said things like that the HBV, the hepatitis B vaccine, um, oh, we're on. Okay, let me get this up here. And last time we had some sound problems. So do let me know. I'll be checking the comments today. Take it away, Bill. Indeed. Mhm. And guess what? That's what Sean Kaufman, the nominee for ASPR, said. I don't know, Senator Cassidy, you tell us. You got primaried because of it. Well, no, we actually did think it was gonna spread that widely, Bill, but point taken. No encyclosporiosis. That's true, and it's a parasite. I gotta say, I kinda like Bill Cassidy. I mean, I don't like him at all, but when he gets going, he's got some good moments. Indeed. Here we go. Correct, including vaccines. Sure did. Guess what other vaccines John Kaufman doesn't like? mRNA vaccines. Well, no, that's not exactly why. It's because they're trying to get rid of all vaccines. Mine will do that. Indeed. At any point. No, it sure isn't. My uncle showed that in 1985. Indeed. About time. Shit. Okay, guys, I see that I'm having the same sound problem that I was having before. I'm gonna try to fix this. Okay, I'm trying to fix this, guys. Sorry about this. I hate this, guys. I'm so sorry that the sound is causing so many problems. This is clearly my streaming software, and boy, do I get annoyed with this. I really, really do not like it. I'm gonna just try to fix this. Automatically adjust mic volume. I think maybe I will turn that off and hopefully that will correct it. I just need to pull up the hearing and I'm going to try to do it on C-SPAN this time rather than the Senate's janky website. And this sucks because the part that I want to see the most is the part where Bill Cassidy goes to town on his ass.
For protecting the well-being of the American people. And that was the reason that she was fired. And Mr. Chairman, what has taken place since that firing? Last year, the United States had the worst measles outbreak in over 30 years, with nearly 2,300 cases reported. We are on track to surpass.
Okay. All right, so that was Bernie in the background talking, and he's still here. I'm going to try to pull this up right now.
3 people died. Now an Ebola outbreak is spreading in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Uganda, with over 1,900 cases and over 700 deaths reported. It's the 3rd largest Ebola outbreak ever reported, and no treatment or vaccines exist yet for this strain. In the United States, vaccination rates are falling.
I see. I didn't share the system audio. That was the problem.
Getting sick and dying from illnesses that vaccines could have prevented. Secretary Kennedy's response to these crises has been to spread misinformation, fire scientists who disagree with him, and wage an unprecedented war on science and vaccines that have saved millions of lives. Mr. Chairman, as you well know, our committee received 250 pages of emails from officials at the CDC and HHS that have confirmed what many of us have feared. These emails have shown that Secretary Kennedy tried to make it more difficult for working families to get vaccines for their children at no cost. He directed CDC staff to pursue the bogus link
There we
that
go.
vaccines cause autism, a link that has been thoroughly debunked by the scientific and medical community. He has spread misinformation about the largest measles outbreak in the U.S. in over 30 years. And Secretary Kennedy stopped a flu vaccination campaign.
I love it how people
during a flu season
deeply
that had killed
appreciative
16,000 people.
of the fact that people are
Mr. Chairman,
on Substack
bottom line here
leaving
is
comments
we need
like
people
giving me
in
tips
HHS
on how to fix this.
who have the courage to stand up for science,
Really appreciate
to protect
you.
our kids, to protect the health and
Let me know
well-being
if you can hear
of the
Bernie or
American
not.
people, and to stand
I'm
up
watching the
to a
chat.
secretary who is moving this country in a very dangerous direction. Thank you.
We shall now proceed with opening statements. Dr. Schwartz.
All right.
Chairman, ranking member, and distinguished,
I'm sorry, I'm supposed to read your bio. Imagine that. You know what I'm saying? My bad.
Whoops. Okay, I'm going to be quiet during this part so that you can hear them. And yes, everybody can hear. All right. Thank you so much, tech support of Substack. You guys are awesome. And despite the fact that I am a systems biologist, I'm actually not very good with computer stuff. So I really, really appreciate all of your help. And like I said, I'm going to shut up now so that we can listen to Bill Cassidy and Erica Schwartz's opening statement,
We're
as
joined
well
today
as
by Dr. Erica Schwartz,
whatever
nominated to be
Sean
the Director
Kaufman's
of the
gonna
Centers for
say.
Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC. She is board certified in occupational medicine. She served as a Navy occupational medicine physician before joining the Public Health Service Commission Corps to serve the Coast Guard in 2005. She served as the Deputy Surgeon General from January 2019 to April 2021. She earned a BS in biomedical engineering and her MD from Brown University, an MPH from the Uniformed Services University of Health Sciences, and a JD from the University of Maryland. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your dedication to public health and military service.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, ranking members, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. It is truly an honor to be nominated for the role of Director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I'd also like to thank President Trump and Secretary Kennedy for the trust they placed in me with this nomination. I am deeply honored by the opportunity to continue serving our nation. I would also like to recognize my husband, whose unwavering support has made a lifetime of service possible. The most important thing to know about me is that I come from a God-fearing military family. My father and my older sister were in the Navy. My older brother was in the Marines, and my younger brother was in the Army. And I had the privilege of serving both in the Navy and with the Coast Guard. For my family, service was not a job. It was a calling, it was a responsibility, and it was an act of faith. My academic career included a biomedical engineering degree and a medical doctorate from Brown University, a Master of Public Health in epidemiology, and a law degree. After medical school, I served as a Navy occupational medicine physician and clinical epidemiologist, focused on protecting service members from hazardous exposures while learning public health from a mission-first operational perspective. I later transferred to the United States Public Health Service and was detailed to the Coast Guard, where I focused on force health protection for responders to major national and global crises, including Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, the 2010 Haiti earthquake, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill disaster, and the West Africa Ebola outbreak. In each of these moments, the men and women of the Coast Guard counted on me to get it right. There was no margin for error. I eventually served as the Coast Guard's chief medical officer at the rank of 2-star admiral, where I was responsible for the Coast Guard's healthcare system, their safety system, and their work-life program. I was later asked to serve as the United States Deputy Surgeon General. During my tenure, our nation faced one of the greatest public health threats in modern history, the COVID-19 pandemic. One of my core responsibilities was ensuring access to diagnostic testing without overwhelming the healthcare system. My team and I rapidly designed and operationalized a scalable public-private solution. We established drive-through testing sites in every state in Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia, testing nearly 11.5 million individuals. Public health is in my DNA. I'm here because I want to continue serving our nation and because I believe deeply in the mission of the CDC. If confirmed, my first priority will be restoring trust in public health institutions through radical transparency and unwavering scientific integrity. As CDC Director, my sacred responsibility is to provide the American people with public health guidance that is clear, honest, and evidence-based. I will never betray the science. Second, we must modernize the CDC into a near real-time public health enterprise capable of detecting threats early and responding faster. 21st century threats require 21st century systems. Third, we must empower states, tribes, local communities, and territorial partners as the operational backbone of American public health. Public health works best closest to the people. The CDC should provide tools, embedded expertise, operational support, and funding flexibility, not rigid top-down control. The CDC is home to an extraordinarily talented and dedicated workforce. If confirmed, I would support them, empower them, and ensure they have the tools and leadership necessary to succeed. At a time when trust in institutions has been challenged, we have an opportunity to restore confidence, strengthen scientific integrity, modernize our systems, and refocus on the CDC's core mission, protecting the health and safety of the American people. I am committed to working with this committee, with public health leaders across America, with communities across our nation, to ensure the CDC fulfills its mission with excellence, integrity, transparency, and accountability. Thank you for your consideration. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz.
Okay, she sounds pretty
next.
good.
We are joined by Mr. Sean Kaufman, nominee to be the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, or ASPR.
Now let's see what
Mr.
this
Kaufman
anti-vaxxer
earned his
has to
Bachelor of
say.
Science and Master of Public Health degrees from San Diego State University with a focus on health promotion and behavioral science. He has 30 years of public health experience with a focus on infectious disease preparedness, biosafety, biosecurity, and emergency response. He has served in leadership roles at CDC, Emory University, and in the private sector where his work focused on improving biosafety through a culture of responsibility. He also founded Safer Behaviors, a firm that delivers behavioral-based training to clients globally. Thank you, sir, for being here. We look forward to hearing from you.
No, we don't.
Thank you, Chairman Cassidy, Ranking Member Sanders, and members of the Senate Help Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today as you consider my nomination to serve as Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response at the Department of Health and Human Services. I am deeply honored by this nomination and grateful to President Trump, Secretary Kennedy, for their confidence and trust. Most importantly, I thank God and my family. I'm especially grateful to my wife, Jacqueline, my daughter, Jamie Lynn, and my brother, Kevin, who are with us today. I also want to recognize my father, a retired United States Marine Corps officer, my brother, a retired FBI special agent, and my son, Aiden, who currently serves as a United States Army aviator flying Black Hawk helicopters. Along with my son, Sean Patrick, my family has dedicated their lives to serving this nation in different ways. Their sacrifices and those of my mother have been greater than anyone should ever have to bear in support of my career in public service. Their love, encouragement, and unwavering support have made this moment possible. I am forever grateful. I am equally thankful for my mentors, my colleagues, and friends who have shaped my career. I also want to recognize the extraordinary men and women who protect America's health every day, some of which are engaged with Ebola overseas. From ASPR, CDC, all of Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of State, to healthcare systems, laboratories, emergency responders, and organizations like Samaritan's Purse, these professionals stand between crisis and recovery. Today, as Americans continue supporting response to Ebola overseas, they remind us that preparedness is never theoretical. It's lived every day through service and sacrifice.
Just have to say that I'm going to have
For
some
more than
things to
30
say about
years,
this.
I have dedicated my career to protecting people from biological threats. My work began during the HIV/AIDS pandemic and has included responses to the September 11th attack, the 2001 anthrax attacks, SARS, H1N1, Ebola, and COVID-19. I led preparedness efforts for the Emory University Ebola Treatment Unit, which cared for the first Ebola patients treated in the United States and deployed to Liberia and Nigeria through the West Africa Ebola epidemic in 2014. Throughout my career, I have worked to strengthen preparedness before disasters occur and improve responses when they do. I have seen firsthand the life-saving impact of vaccines. Let me be clear, vaccines save lives. They are safe and effective and remain one of the most important tools in public health for preventing infectious diseases and protecting the American people.
Somebody's been getting some good
The threats
coaching.
facing our nation continue to evolve. We must remain prepared for emerging infectious diseases, deliberate biological threats, and increasingly complex challenges driven by advances in biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and rapidly changing technologies.
Oh, here we go.
At the same time, chemical, radiological, nuclear, cyber,
Nuclear.
and natural disasters are all hazards that require an integrated approach that is faster, more agile, and more resilient than ever before.
Start by not saying
ASPR
nuclear.
exists for one reason: to save lives. There is no greater responsibility in public service, and if confirmed, I will devote myself fully to that mission. My priorities will be straightforward. First, I hope to strengthen and reauthorize PAPA with all of us together to keep pace with today's threats while improving coordination and accountability across the government. Second, I want to accelerate the development of medical countermeasures, which includes vaccines, therapeutics, diagnostics, and other life-saving capabilities so America is never caught unprepared. Third, I want to invest in the people who make preparedness possible: our healthcare workers, emergency responders, laboratorians, public health professionals, and scientists, ensuring they are trained, equipped, and supported for the challenges ahead. Fourth, I'd like to modernize how we develop, manufacture, stockpile, and deliver critical medical resources so they reach Americans quickly when every minute matters.
Including
And finally,
vaccines.
I want to strengthen partnerships across the federal government with our state, local, tribal, and territorial partners while working closely with healthcare systems, industry, academia, and nonprofit community. Preparedness is a shared responsibility, and our success depends on working together before a crisis, not simply reacting after one begins.
This fella's written a lot of grants in his
Throughout my
time.
career, I have learned one enduring lesson. Preparedness is not measured by what we are doing during a disaster. It is measured by what we do before one arrives and how we commit ourselves to those who have survived. If confirmed, I will lead with integrity, urgency, humility, and accountability. I will work every day to ensure that when the next emergency comes, and history tells us it will, the American people have confidence that their government is prepared to respond quickly, effectively, compassionately, and in the manner worthy of trust. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Well, I look forward to him too, because he's saying all the right things, but boy, do I doubt his sincerity.
Dr. Schwartz, your predecessor was let go because she would not make decisions that she felt she was instructed to make, that she felt were going to be bad for public health. She did not have the ability to demote or reassign people, and she objected to decisions, and because of that, according to her, was brought in and browbeaten and eventually let go. What commitment, one, will you commit to this committee and to the American people to have the same integrity as she, that if asked to do something which is wrong for public health, that you will stand up as she did, object, if necessary, publicly?
Chairman, thank you for the question, and thank you for meeting with me earlier. The one thing that I can tell you is how I lead and how I live And I have lived and I have led by my integrity. I have spent over 25 years in the uniformed services leading by integrity. That is what I can commit to you and to the committee, that I will continue to live and lead by my integrity. You are a physician, I'm a physician. We both took the Hippocratic Oath. For me, the Hippocratic Oath meant that I would never harm my patients. Their health and well-being took primacy. If I'm confirmed as the CDC director, the nation's health and well-being will take primacy, and I will never compromise on that.
Now, we know that the Secretary has put people at the CDC who are there basically to look for evidence, however they can find it in fishing expeditions of how vaccines may cause problems.
Now we're talking, Bill.
They can't find it, but they keep on doing it. Now, have you been told that you'll have the ability
So
to reassign
Bill is
people who are
referring
being
to the fact
counterproductive in
that
terms of
he is
promoting
Kennedy has
trust
stalked the
in
CDC
public
with all
health
of these
measures, which have been
anti-vaxxers from
shown
Children's
time and
Health
time again to
Defense?
be safe?
Chairman, I am sitting here because the president nominated me and the secretary
Oh, this
and I
isn't
had
good, though.
conversations. And those conversations were about my background. The fact that I spent
Let me
25
interrupt.
years.
I have limited
Yep.
time. This is
Erica,
almost a
are you
yes or
going to
no.
fire him or not?
Will you have the ability to reassign, demote, get rid of people who are harmful to our public health venture based upon the scientific knowledge that is generally known because the unwavering scientific integrity, as you say,
Indeed.
with evidence-based and free from political science, not betraying science, standing on science, speaking the truth, even in difficult moments.
Pretty
You
rich
have
of Bill
to-
to
you
say
have
that,
the
though,
ability to
considering
do
he
that,
really pulled
free
punches
of
for a
political
long time
influence.
until he was
Chairman,
sure that
the
he got
Secretary-
primaried.
Absolutely will allow me to be the CDC director. That is why I'm sitting here before you. The
Yes, but
secretary
that-
knows
and I
that.
almost
Are you
feel
gonna
like I'm
fire
having
the
to go after this
anti-vaxxers,
question a little bit
Erica?
more firmly than I feel like I should. You can be CDC director and just take orders. We need a
Indeed.
CDC director that will actually stand up to crazy, stupid things being said that undermine faith in immunization.
It's pretty
Are
important
you the
considering
person-
the
and
last
I'm being very
CDC
direct
director
here,
got fired for
because
that.
Obviously, I feel like we've got thousands of kids hospitalized because people have promoted that immunization is bad, and now kids have died because of it.
Indeed.
It is evil to do that.
It is
and people
evil.
persist. You are the bulwark. So I'm asking, will you have the ability and the firmness to stand up to that political meddling, to say, no, that's wrong and this is right?
Chairman, you have my assurances that I will continue to lead by my integrity. I will never compromise
not
on
the answer
science.
he
I
was
will
looking for,
always,
Dr. Schwartz.
always have the public's health in mind. I have spent over 25 years making sure that my
That's not
patients.
quite the
Are you
direct
going to
answer
fire
I'm
the
hoping for.
anti-vaxxers?
I'm just saying that. And I know you've been through a murder board. One more time. I believe you're a woman of integrity. I accept that. But will you have the ability to say no to junk science and to say yes to that which has been firmly established and to stick up for what is actually right and true as opposed to that which is superstition and prejudice?
Chairman, I have always stood up for what is right and what is true, and I believe
I
that
hope
will
so.
continue to do that. You have my assurances that I will do that. I will never betray the science, ever. I will go where the science leads us. I will not have predetermined answers to conclusions. I will make sure that the CDC is focused on scientific rigor, that the CDC is focused on radical transparency, as we discussed in your
I don't like
office,
this. She's
and
using
that
a lot of the
CDC, which is
Maha
the most important
buzzwords.
thing to regain public trust is that we lead with humility. There is an error
So,
that
excuse me, because I'm almost out of time. Radical transparency includes
Saying whether or not you're going to fire the
if somebody
anti-vaxxers.
puts people beneath you or above you or around you and will not let you remove them, but they are doing wrong things at the CDC, pursuing an agenda harmful to America's public health. And we've seen evidence of that. It's not a theoretical. How will you handle that situation?
Chairman, I'm not obviously there at the CDC, but you have my assurances that if I am confirmed as a CDC director,
We'll fire
I will
the
work with
anti-vaxxers?
team, the principal deputy director, Sean Slavinsky, who's already on the ground, and the deputy director, the chief medical officer, Dr. Jennifer Shuford, to have those conversations. And if there's something that comes up that is concerning, you have my assurances that I will answer any questions that this committee has regarding exactly what you just mentioned.
Senator Sanders.
Thank you. Dr. Schwartz, thank you very much for your service over the years. According to the American Medical Association, which represents over 270,000 doctors, quote, An abundance of evidence from decades of scientific studies shows no link between vaccines and autism, end quote.
I don't think that this woman
In fact,
believes
there
there's
have been
any
more than
kind of
40
link between
scientific
vaccines and
studies in 7
autism.
countries involving over 5 million people,
Bernie,
finding that there is no link
get to
between
your
vaccines
question.
and autism. And yet today, the CDC has published false information on its website suggesting that childhood vaccines cause autism. Dr. Schwartz, do you agree the existing scientific evidence shows vaccines do not cause autism? If confirmed, will you commit to removing information on the CDC website suggesting a link between vaccines and
Now
autism?
that's the right question, Bernie.
Senator, we do not know what causes autism.
No, that's
One
not
in
true.
33 children have a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, and we owe it to the American people to figure out why. The president
We
has
know that it's
asked
because of
Secretary Kennedy
genetics.
to find out what is causing.
Look, I don't have a lot of
autism.
time, and we all want to
You've
find
got
the
to be
cause
kidding
of
me.
autism. The
Okay.
evidence is overwhelming. that
Thumbs down on
vaccines
Erica
do
Schwartz,
not
in my
cause autism.
opinion.
Do you accept that evidence?
I do accept that evidence, Senator.
If
So?
confirmed, will you commit to removing information on the CDC website suggesting a link between vaccines and autism?
If confirmed, Senator, you have my commitment that I will look at that exact website. I have not seen that. I
How
will
could
speak
you have
with the
not
Secretary
seen that
to
when you're
understand
looking
But
for
the
this job?
Secretary has put that stuff
That
up
literally
there.
was
I'm
unbelievably
asking
famous
you
and it was
is will
addressed
you
by the Help
remove
Committee. This very
information that
committee.
suggests a link between vaccines and autism.
Senator, I have been in many situations where I have had to go to my superiors in the military to have conversations, very difficult conversations about things that may not have been that may have been concerning to the troops or to the military personnel. And I will do the same with the secretary. I will go to the secretary.
Sorry to
if there's
interrupt you.
something-
I just have a brief amount of time. In August of
Nobody
last
gives
year,
a shit that you're
Secretary
gonna, like,
Kennedy's
talk
Chief of
back to
Staff-
Kennedy.
Chief of Staff sent an
Okay,
email
are you gonna
to the
take it off the
previous
website or
CDC
not?
Director demanding that, quote, CDC political leadership all have eyes on the decisions for approval changes before they go into effect, make America great, end quote.
Indeed.
Within days, the CDC director was fired for failing to approve Secretary Kennedy's anti-vaccine agenda. Dr. Schwartz, if confirmed, will you commit that you will report to Congress if you receive directives from Secretary Kennedy or any other individual in the Trump administration to implement policies that are unscientific and could harm the health and well-being of the American people?
Senator, I do not believe that the president or the secretary would ever do what you just mentioned. But you
Really?
do-
Really?
Do you think that is the record? He would not do that?
You,
Is that what you're saying?
you don't think that Trump or Kennedy
Senator,
would do
I do
that?
not think that the secretary or the president would ask me to do something like that.
He literally did that with the last CDC
Thank you.
director.
Mr. Kaufman, in 2022, you said that, quote, you would rather perish, end quote, than have any of your 3 children, quote, receive an injection of the COVID vaccine where the risks soundly outweigh the benefits gained, end quote.
Now here we
Is that
go with Kaufman.
Is that a true statement?
He thinks vaccines
Yes, it is,
save
Senator.
lives, but not all of them.
And yet in 2021, President Trump called the COVID vaccine, quote, one of the greatest achievements of mankind, end quote. I don't usually agree with President Trump, but it certainly was a great achievement.
I'm
So
right
who's
there with you,
Were
Bern.
right, or was President Trump right?
Senator, I think we are both right. If I may explain that, because I think there have been several things, and Chairman Cassidy alluded to it earlier, that have been mischaracterized.
Oh,
My
I
children,
see.
thank
It's a
God,
big
are young and
misunderstanding that
healthy.
I'd rather die than give my
And
kids a
right
COVID
before that
vaccine.
post, I had taken them to a Kroger, looked at antibodies, and they were all antibody positive for COVID-19.
What?
And the risk-benefit equation for my children didn't exist. However, and this is very important, and I want to mention Trish Lawrence.
Wait.
Trish Lawrence is my
This guy went and got them
wife's mom, who recently passed away from
serologically
PLS.
tested at a
She had a
Kroger,
condition, a very
and
serious
his kids had
condition during
antibodies
COVID.
to COVID,
And I recommended,
And so-
not only for Trish Lawrence, but her husband Frank Lawrence.
so he doesn't think they
to
need a
get the
vaccine and he'd
COVID-19
rather
vaccine
die than
because
give
it was
them
very
one.
appropriate in that circumstance. I believe 100% that vaccines are safe and
What
effective.
the
and
fuck
that
is
we
this
should have
story?
conversations with
Trish
our
and Lawrence?
physicians
Like, what is he
to make
talking
a
about?
determination on which and what is the best risk-benefit equation for that patient.
Thank you.
But you're not a doctor. And, like, honestly, if I took my kids to a
Chairman,
Kroger
thank
to
you.
get them antibody
And,
tested for
Dr.
COVID and they were
Schwartz, Mr. Kaufman,
antibody
thank you for being
positive, meaning
here
they'd had
and,
COVID,
your willingness
I don't
to
think my
serve.
first response would be
A lot of
like, I'd rather
discussion
die
this
than
morning,
vaccinate them.
About vaccines and vaccine policies. Know that I share the concerns that the chairman has outlined with what happens to
Alaska
an
had the
erosion
highest
public
rate of
trust
childhood
when we have,
hepatitis B and hepatocellular
decisions
carcinoma
that are
of any
advanced
country or
that
any
do
state
not
in the
appear
country.
to follow
So Lisa
the science.
Murkowski is
I have
also a
mentioned
big fan of the
in this committee
hepatitis B
multiple
vaccine.
times,
My uncle
the
has spoken
example
with her about it
that,
on numerous
Alaska
occasions
set
because
some
he is in fact a
decades ago.
hepatologist who lives
We
in
had
Alaska
historic,
and eliminated
very,
hepatitis
very
B from the
high,
indigenous population there
hepatitis
by
B
vaccinating
rates, the
children,
highest in the nation,
including with the
particularly
universal birth
in our
dose,
Alaska Native
ever
communities
since
and
the
with
vaccine
Alaska
was
Native
available in the
children.
early 80s.
And they embarked on a very ambitious, aggressive campaign, but effectively through screening and vaccination and sustained universal newborn immunization, they have virtually eliminated hepatitis
Yay,
B
Uncle
transmission
Brian
in these,
McMahon, my
communities
uncle, is who
and
Lisa
prevented
Murkowski
new
is talking
cases
about right now.
of hepatitis B liver-related causes.
Did a great service
cancer,
to the American
which,
people,
again, the chairman
and especially
has
to the
mentioned.
indigenous
And
communities
I
that
look
were
to
horribly
as just
affected
one
by hepatitis
extraordinary
B.
example of the value. And I know that, Mr. Kaufman, you have made statements previously as it relates specifically to the hepatitis B vaccine.
Get 'em.
And my question to you this morning is whether you agree that the hepatitis B birth dose remains an important tool for protecting high burden and rural states such as Alaska.
Senator, thank you for the question. And to give you an answer other than yes, I will tell you that all three of my children, who I love more than anything, have received the infant dose of the hepatitis B vaccine.
Right, because your children are like in their 20s,
these are
and
important
20 years
because,
ago, it wasn't a politically important
These
position to
types
be
of,
anti-vax.
clarifications are important because you see reference that unless you are a drug user or sexually, your concerns about sexually transmitted diseases. But again, when we're talking about those vaccines that can be given at birth that can prevent these horrible deaths, I think it needs to be made clear. We get back to the issue of how do we establish public trust here.
Indeed.
I mentioned.
Although I gotta
many
say,
of our
Lisa
tribal
Murkowski, you do a lot of
communities,
good talking
and,
about this, but
we
when it
face
actually
in
comes
the
to
state
doing
of
it,
Alaska,
you don't
challenges when
always
it comes
take
to,
action.
to public health emergencies, natural disasters. It requires our tribal communities to rely on close coordination with ASPR, with the Indian Health Service, tribal health systems, the Public Health Service Commission Corps, which I appreciate your leadership there, Dr. Schwartz. But there's just a lot of challenges. The challenges come with geography, limited health infrastructure, workforce shortages. And so directed to you, Mr. Kaufman, how could you envision strengthening ASPR's partnership with IHS, the tribes, and the Public Health Service Commission Corps to ensure that we're able to respond timely and get effective support, because this is where we see the lags.
This is a good
Thank you,
question,
Senator,
but it's
for the
also very
question.
Alaska specific.
My past experiences in emergency response, one of my greatest worries is that emergency responders come in like seagulls. They fly in and then they fly out, and they leave the community with all the issues that they had before, and sometimes leaving the community worse off than better off. And hearing Dr. Schwartz talk earlier, she has said that public health is always local, and I will say that emergency response is local as well. When something goes wrong,
Well,
the community knows
sort of by
best.
necessity.
And it's always a great strategy to let the community lead during emergency situations. So my plan would be to come in, strengthen existing partnerships, ensure that individuals are empowered to respond, and that they can serve their
Okay.
communities as they see fit.
Like, this is a meaningless answer, though. Like, how do you do that?
In delivering the COVID vaccines, where there was that on-the-ground response that really made that difference. Dr. Schwartz,
Just go to Kroger and get an antibody
Again,
test.
sticking with,
Then you don't need a vaccine.
Native communities,
according to
as we
this
know,
guy.
you and I have discussed health disparities that we really need to be focusing on. I introduced yesterday a bill entitled the Native Children's Commission Implementation Act. It directs CDC to improve the quality, accuracy, and completeness of maternal and infant health data for American Indian, Alaska Native, Native Hawaiian populations by strengthening partnerships with tribes, tribal epidemiologists, centers, and other Native partners. I'm just going to ask you if you are confirmed to work with us to address some of these long-standing challenges that we see with racial misclassification, with underreporting, and really just incomplete data collection. We have to do a better job as we're addressing maternal mortality issues and ensuring that
This is the real problem with Lisa Murkowski. Like, she talks about all this stuff, and like, yes, I agree with you. We do need to do a better job about all of this stuff.
Senator, you have my commitment.
But she never like really names what the problem is.
Exactly what.
And right now, it's not just because there's like there's racism. It's because of specifically who's doing the racism, and it's like the government.
And I know we have more work to do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. Now Senator Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kaufman, I have been seriously concerned by Secretary Kennedy's repeated actions to limit the use of vaccines and spread misinformation.
Well, I've been
around
concerned
the
about it
safety
too.
and efficacy of vaccines. Investing in new vaccines and innovative vaccine technology is critical, particularly during an Ebola outbreak and global health emergency. We need to be prepared for everything from the next pandemic to the next bad flu season. So I'll start with what I hope will be an easy question for you. Mr. Kaufman, do you believe that mRNA vaccines, including the COVID-19 vaccine, are safe and effective? Yes or no?
He said
Senator
in his
Baldwin,
opening
yes, I
statement
do.
that he did.
Thank you.
I'm not going to get him on that one.
Your statements that were referred to earlier under examination by Senator Sanders, where you indicated that
Went to a
you
Kroger
would
and got your
rather-
kids' antibodies
I think
tested.
the quote is, as a father of 3 who would rather perish than have any one of his children receive an injection,
Tammy, he was at the Kroger the night before.
a lot of concern, and I think you're going to have to do some strong work to clarify your views on this topic. I'm going to ask the same question to you, Dr. Schwartz, but first I want to thank you for your service to this nation. Dr. Schwartz, do you believe that mRNA vaccines, including the COVID-19 vaccine, are safe and effective?
Yes, she does.
Senator, thank you for meeting with me earlier. I do appreciate that. I will say for the record, you do have the most beautiful office in the Senate. That being said, I do believe that mRNA.
You're all welcome.
Has she seen everybody's office?
I do believe that mRNA technology is safe and effective.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, vaccine policy is just one example of political interference that you've heard
Just one.
several senators reflect upon in public health decision
within vaccines, there's
that
multiple
we've seen
examples of
during
this.
administration that impacts the safety of Americans. This spring, a study about the effectiveness of COVID vaccines was suppressed within the Department of Health and Human Services.
Podcast Jay
Public
strikes
health,
again.
Grant awards now undergo a political scrubbing before they are awarded. The administration
And that's
has
only going to
now
get worse, but I don't
proposed
think
adding
that there's
a new
anything she can
office
do about that.
to formalize political review of CDC actions. If that isn't bad enough, a recent OMB proposed rule would create a government-wide mechanism requiring political review of every discretionary grant.
Commissars at every agency.
Restrictions
Just
on
like in
what
the good old
funded
Soviet Union,
researchers can publish
because we're
and
communists.
expand the government's authority to terminate grants on a whim. We need a CDC
This is
director
where Russell
that
Vogt,
can
the OMB
demonstrate
director, is
independence
trying to give
from political
himself, and I hope you all
decision-making
left
and the willingness
comments,
to
I
stand
certainly
up,
did,
when
trying to
necessary
give
to
himself
Secretary Kennedy.
exclusive control
Dr. Schwartz, you've
of the
said
entire
many
federal
times that one
budget,
of your top
basically
goals as CDC director
in
would be
direct
to bring
violation
back
of the
trust
appropriations
to the
clause of the
CDC.
Constitution.
How do you go about accomplishing a goal like that if the views of scientists can be overridden by political appointees? How would you operate in an environment, as I've just described, where there is now going to be
a very good question, Tammy.
political scrubbing of every discretionary grant from the agency?
Senator, thank you for the question. As you heard in my opening remarks, restoring trust to the CDC is my number one priority. And I look at it in three ways. The first thing that we must do, is to go where the science leads us, no matter what. Scientific integrity is core. The second thing is that radical transparency, and a lot of folks don't understand what radical transparency means.
I
And
don't.
the way I think about radical transparency
Because it
is
usually
when
means
I
the
was
opposite in this
with the Coast Guard,
administration.
I was the medical unit leader in Deepwater Horizon, and there was a lot of confusion on the ground. I had a pilot who came up to me, and he was very concerned about his exposure to the dispersants that were being used. And he asked me, Doc Schwartz, am I going to get cancer? If I get exposed to this corrects it. And the radical transparency that I had to utilize was to tell him that I did not know. I didn't know if the mixture of Corexit, dispersants, the toxins in the water would cause this individual to have cancer long term. But what I did tell him was, A, I didn't know, but he was going to be enrolled in a long-term surveillance program so that if any health effects happened, we would know it. And that assurance, even though I didn't know the answer to his question, that assurance was enough for him to complete the mission effectively and successfully. That's the radical transparency that the American people want to know. They want to know what we know, what we don't know, and why we don't know it. And the third thing that's critical is leading with humility. I want to be the CDC director for all Americans. I don't want to be a paternalistic CDC director. I want to be a CDC director in a very similar manner as I was an occupational medicine physician, a patient-centered physician. I want to be a nation-centered CDC director.
I appreciate those sentiments so much, and I just want to say that in the context of an agency that is suppressing studies and having political scrubbing of grant decisions, that's going to be a real challenge.
Yeah.
And I want you to convince me that you are going to be able to push back against those attempts to interfere with radical transparency.
Yeah, sorry, Erica. You're not going to get away with
Thank you,
these
Mr.
great
Chairman.
answers.
For both of you, I'm going to ask you in a second about active pharmaceutical ingredients. You don't have to tell me what the problem is. I want to talk about solutions. But before I get to that, I just want to compliment both of you, two of the most qualified people I've seen in front of us. Dr. Schwartz, incredible resume, 2-star admiral.
I agree, but
Just congratulations and thanks. And most importantly, your culture, your values, all those things that I sure
right,
hope
because
that
she
my
came
kids
in,
and grandkids
you know,
look up
firing
and say,
off
that's
like
the type
about
of
how
person
religious she
I want
was.
to be and the type of
God-fearing
position
military.
I want to have. And Sean Kaufman, I think you're the right person for ASPR right now. I think it's always good to go back and look at the
We
fundamentals.
definitely
So
need an
what is
anti-vaxxer in
ASPR?
charge of
This
the
is
national
something I didn't know
stockpile.
of till I got here, even though I'm a physician, that it's the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response. Your motto, stand ready, move fast. Your charge is in charge of medical public health preparedness, response, and recovery. And I believe that for such a time as this, you've been prepared to do this job. Your resume, hands-on experience inside
You've been
public health
preparing your whole
laboratories,
life for this, Sean
frontline response
Kaufman.
experience to anthrax, the test, West Nile's virus.
West
You
Nile
understand federal
virus.
infrastructure and interagency coordination. You've led private sector innovation in behavioral safety and disaster preparedness. Sean Kaufman combines
So,
deep technical
to be
knowledge,
clear, what
real-world
that means
response
is he does
experience, and
safety
proven
training
leadership.
consulting.
Exactly what we need to keep Americans safe. Now, so often this committee seems like all we care about is vaccines. It's 1% of both
Does
of
it
your
seem
world,
like
maybe
all you
more,
care
maybe-
about is
maybe less.
vaccines?
And I happen to agree. There's concerns about the mRNA technology. It's short-lived. They don't stop the virus.
What?
There are significant risk associated, especially young males, especially young males that have positive antibodies, right? And
No,
like
no,
you,
they
I gave
actually,
different
there's
advice to
no-
my parents than I did my kids. But I guess
There is
what
a
I'm looking
slight
for,
risk
Mr. Kaufman,
of
is
transient,
let's just say it's
non-severe
the next virus.
myocarditis
It's the next
in
epidemic.
boys.
Are you committed
Even if
to
you have
making sure that
antibodies or
America
not.
has access
You can still
to
make that
whatever
risk-benefit
vaccines
decision
that,
yourself.
that you deem safe and worthy?
You don't have to
put
say
in
I'd
the hands
rather
of
die
doctors
than do it,
to make that same
than give this
recommendation
vaccine that I think
for
is
their
safe and
patients.
effective to my kids.
Senator Marshall, thank you for the question. I also want to thank you. I've actually done a lot of great work in your state at the USDA in Bath, and I want to acknowledge the staff is phenomenal and excellent there as well. To answer the question, I will be committed to lead a phenomenal team at ASPR. Primarily, there's a small organization many may not hear of, an island of excellence called BARDA. And BARDA is
What do you mean nobody's
responsible
heard
not
of
only for
BARDA
looking
and
at
it's an
new
island of
technologies, 'cause what we
excellence,
face
huh?
today is we face the ability of our adversaries to actually genetically modify organisms, creating novel threats that actually pose and put Americans drastically at risk, very similar to what we saw with COVID. So BARDA is not only interested
What are the
in
odds that you think
creating,
Sean Kaufman thinks the
vaccine
pandemic
countermeasures
started
to
because
protect
a
Americans,
U.S.
but
researcher
also
made it at the
therapeutics so that when
Wuhan
Americans
Institute
get
of
sick,
Virology
Mr. Kaufman, I'm
after
trying to get you some
funding by
votes here.
Tony Fauci
Are you
caused
committed to
it,
getting
as
the
Tulsi
vaccines
Gabbard
into the hands
revealed?
of doctors and nurses and regardless of anything that's ever been said?
Absolutely, 100%. I'm sorry.
I
missed
know
this
that
off.
Roger Marshall
Yeah.
thinks it's a lab leak.
There you go. Dr. Schwartz, I mentioned the API. You and I know what the huge problem is. What's the solution to bring API back home? Active pharmaceutical ingredients, yeah.
Senator, I actually have to get smarter on that. I have to be brutally honest here. I haven't been really following that, but I would definitely love to work with your team. And
My guess is the diagnostics. that
Should
you're
have met with
using,
Roger Marshall
the
in
therapeutics
advance
you
of
want
this
available,
hearing, I
take
guess.
API, and Mr. Kaufman. Now maybe it's a BARDA turn.
That's right. Yeah, there's new technology. Right now, as you know, there's a problem, and I'm so happy that you acknowledge.
I
it's
love that
actually
we're
a
going to
very,
now
very big
start
problem.
talking about
BARDA
nobody knows
can
what
look at
BARDA's supposed to
technology
do and
that
nobody
actually,
knows what ASPR is
uses
supposed to do.
different types of ingredients that can undermine the adversaries and put a need on more of a biological basis for future countermeasures than a chemical one. So there are different strategies and technologies that the scientists at BARDA are looking into and will begin to explore to protect America.
But this is the problem that this committee needs to be looking at. This is the real problem. I mean, it's great to see the
But the real-
manufacturing moving back here, that we're making vaccines, we're making drugs again in this company, but we don't have the API to do it. And very few
Okay.
companies are doing it.
So
and I
the
hope this
problem
committee
here
can
that they're
take on
talking
that
about is like
challenge,
making
whatever we can
pharmaceutical
do
ingredients,
as a congressional body.
including for biologicals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr.
Kaufman's
Marshall.
talking about doing
I
this
think
in a
it's
way
Senator
that will
Kane.
like fuck up our adversaries.
Mr. Chair, and congratulations to the witnesses, Dr. Schwartz and
I
Ms.
do
Kaufman.
love Tim Kaine's
I
glasses
appreciated both of
game.
our visits. Dr. Schwartz, I'll just begin this
There's
way.
a certain kind of man who can just
I
really
cast
rock
votes
that
that I
like sort of
sometimes
glasses on the
regret.
forehead
I
look,
have
and
cast
Tim
some
Kaine
votes
is
in favor of some
100%
Trump
one of them.
nominees that I've come to regret. But I've also come to regret a vote that I cast against a Trump nominee, and it's the predecessor, Dr. Menares. She was before us, and I thought she was very qualified, but I wondered whether she would have the backbone to stand up to political pressure. And
She
it's
sure
interesting,
did.
Senator Sanders asked a question that I think I asked in almost the same verbiage. Will you resist political pressure applied by the secretary or the president? And her answer was, they would never do such a thing. And I thought, wow, I think you're wrong. So
And that's
I
what
voted
Erica
against
Schwartz
her.
just said.
And she did demonstrate the backbone that I thought was really remarkable. And I apologized to her at a hearing, a year or so later. Your answer was almost exactly the same as hers. I don't think I'll ever get asked to do such a thing. Now, look, that's kind of a theoretical, hypothetical question. So actually, I'd kind of like to ask one that is not theoretical or hypothetical, but that's a very live issue right now. And it deals with tobacco and the Office of Smoking and Health at the CDC.
Oh, you mean the
In
office that
April
was, I think, mostly
2025,
closed?
The entire Office on Smoking Health was eliminated.
There you
Now,
go.
this is an office that is in statute, and it's an office that receives congressional appropriations, but the Trump administration eliminated it. The contractors supporting the office were fired, And the employees who have lost their jobs, actually, they've been on administrative leave getting paid for not doing their job while the legality of their firing is being contested in court. The elimination of the CDC's office has weakened the nation's longest-standing
Indeed.
tobacco control infrastructure.
And I want people to
meanwhile, the
understand
tobacco
too that
industry
this
is
is the
filling the
mechanism
void.
by which
They're
they're eliminating
expanding
this
their
stuff.
influence
They
through the
eliminate
FDA
it, they go to
authorization
court, and
process.
maybe it gets
So, as
added
an
back,
example,
but by the
in
time
May,
it does,
the FDA authorized
can't add
40
back.
flavored e-cigarettes, the flavors that attract kids to use e-products, mango, blueberry, and others, directly appealing and I think addicting young people. In May, the FDA issued enforcement guidance stating that it wouldn't prioritize enforcement products that have not been approved, so long as they have a pending application that's been accepted for review. So there's been a real effort to dismantle 40 years of tobacco control infrastructure, particularly as it goes to this issue of young people. So here's what I want to know. You don't have any role in the FDA process, and I get that. But if confirmed, will you commit to spending congressionally appropriated dollars for the Office on Smoking and Health on fact-based
For
tobacco
what
control
Congress wants you to
programs
spend it
free of
on.
tobacco industry influence?
That's how the
And
Constitution
bring
says
back
that the
a
money is supposed
sufficient
to be
staff
spent.
infrastructure to make sure that you can carry out the mission for which Congress appropriates funds to the CDC.
Yep.
Senator, thank you again for meeting with me earlier, and thank you for the question. As a board-certified occupational medicine physician, you are speaking about something that is near and dear to my heart. I ran the health promotion clinic when I was in the Navy at the Naval Health Clinic in Annapolis, and the number one thing that I focused on was smoking cessation. As you know, smoking has so many significant adverse outcomes, whether it's cardiovascular disease, whether it's COPD.
Yes, we
whether it's
know. Are
certain
you going to
types of
open the office
cancers.
back up and spend
So
money
I
on
am
it?
very much concerned that what you just mentioned, I was not aware of, that is happening. You have my assurances that
Erica
if I am
Schwartz
confirmed as the
has,
CDC director, that I will work with your
paid
team,
no
your
attention
staff,
to what's
and work with
happened at
you
the
to
CDC,
understand
and yet
that
she's
we are
supposed to
appropriated
be
for this particular
its
office,
director.
why we are not, in fact,
I didn't
having
know
that
that
office
the
being,
CDC was saying that
actively-
autism might
why
be
it
caused
hasn't
by
been done is one thing,
vaccines.
but going
I didn't
forward,
know
so
that
we
they
have both
closed
of
the
the
smoking
leaders of the
office. I
Appropriations
didn't know
Committee
that all
on
this shit was
committee.
going
Senator
on.
Murray is the lead Democrat, the ranking member, Senator
I don't think
Collins
the
is
president would
chairman.
ever ask me to
And
fuck
when
up
they
the
appropriate money
CDC.
and Congress
I don't
votes
think
on
it's
an
very political
appropriation,
there.
We
I'm
get the
just gonna stand behind the
appropriations power in the
science.
Constitution. It's not a presidential power.
Yeah.
Congress writes the budget.
Congress
And so
does write the
my
budget.
expectation of a CDC
It's called the
director is if we vote on
appropriations
an
clause.
appropriations bill that says, here's the money for this office at the CDC. I don't care if it's the secretary, the president, or some blogger saying, well, we shouldn't spend the money. Once Congress
Some
votes for
blogger.
it, it's the law. And I would just like to know, will you follow the law if we appropriate money for this mission at the CDC?
Senator, I will always follow the law.
Thank you for that. My time is up. I'm going to just say one last thing. You and I had a good visit about the routing of commercial aviation from nations that are experiencing the Ebola outbreak into a few airports in the
Oh.
country, including Dulles.
Well, now
And we
there's been
need
a
to make
complete
sure that
travel
those who
ban,
are
so no worries.
Dealing with travelers from these nations have public health expertise, but also there's a lot of employees at Dulles, and I imagine at the other three airports, who have their own questions. And you committed to me in my office that should you be confirmed, you would make sure that the CDC gets to these locations where folks are coming in to try to have forums and provide information to whether it's the air traffic controllers.
Wait, so
flight
you're like
attendants,
routing
folks who work
Ebola
in
flights
retail
into
establishments
Dulles?
In the means of
And like the
radical
CDC
transparency,
isn't
we wanna be able to
explaining
answer
anything
folks'
about
questions,
this
and
to
I
people?
appreciated your
Like who work at
response.
Dulles? It's just
Thank
like,
And you still have my commitment.
here comes your Ebola flight.
Thank you, Mr.
I mean,
Chairman.
not that there's actually a huge risk of Ebola
Kaufman,
on
Dr.
this
Schwartz,
flight. It
thanks
means
for
flight
joining
from
us
Africa, but
I have
still.
a question for
Oh,
Dr.
boy.
Schwartz about something that Ohio has a great connection to, and that is Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD,
Creutzfeldt-Jakob.
as it's commonly
Mad
referred.
cow
It's a rare
disease.
and always fatal brain disease.
Here we
And
go.
It belongs to the family of illness called prion diseases, and it's right now there is no treatment for it. or cure.
There probably
and
never will
Ohio
be.
is
Prions are scary.
playing a leading role in trying to change that.
They're
because we have
infectious
a
proteins
research facility,
that go in and change
National
the
Prion
structure of
Disease
your
Pathology
existing proteins so that
Surveillance
they
Center in
also become
Cleveland.
prion
And it
proteins.
relies on CDC funding.
You can't
for
really
the research
autoclave
that
them. You got to
happens
do
there.
it at higher temperatures.
And it helps scientists understand how the brain disease occurs and how it's passed from person to person, or perhaps from animals to persons. And that gets me to the next part of this, which is chronic wasting disease,
Here we go.
which is another type of this disease. It's a fatal condition. It resides mostly in deer in my state, but also can happen with elk and moose. And it's been detected in over 36 states and across the country. Why does that matter? Because we harvest through hunting 200,000 plus deer a year, which people eat. And it's a way of maintaining the deer population in rural states all across our country. And so continued research and understanding of this is important. And the only way to really do that is through post-mortem.
Sorry, I have a dog.
Post-mortem
She's-
human brain tissue analysis. And
You're
it's
about to see her.
imperative that we continue to do this to monitor and understand how the disease works and how, if and how there's a transfer from animals to humans. And so what I am interested in your response to
Okay, stop.
is just your reassurance that you will support the center's postmortem brain tissue analysis capacity and as we have more research and done on this, that you would support additional research support if there's a backlog in this development of the postmortem analysis, and that you will ensure CDC effectively coordinates between itself and state health departments and others who are working on this to identify the laboratories and the research that's looking into this to make sure that we're controlling this disease and understanding it better. Because if something like that happens where we get this transfer from animal to human beings, it's a huge issue. So just
Yeah, I mean, it
your
would be. If chronic
reaction and
wasting
reassurance
disease
on
got
that
into
particular
people,
issue.
it would be really,
Senator,
really bad.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for meeting with me earlier. Whether it's CJD or CWD, certainly if I am confirmed as a CDC director, I would work with your team to understand what are the capacities of the CDC to look into these types of very rare diseases. I know their resource constraints are, something that is a reality.
Literally, the
whether it's with
CDC
or
does
any
this. They have a
other
branch
institution.
office
So I certainly want to make sure that
at Colorado
I
State
was not
University.
aware of
The
what you
CDC
just
itself
described,
does
but I wanna
research
make
on
sure
prion
I'm
diseases.
confirmed that I work with
Although
your
chronic
team and
wasting
the
disease
career
is currently an
scientists at the
animal
CDC,
disease,
see what is our
so
capacity,
that's
what are we
actually
set-
within
what are
the
we appropriated to
USDA's
do and what we can do to
portfolio.
address
And
this
they
issue.
also do
Chronic
surveillance,
wasting
or at least they
disease
used
is,
to before
spreading in our
APHIS
state. I
was
think it's
gutted by
spreading
at least a
in other
quarter
states
of
as
their
well.
workforce.
As a result, as we head towards hunting season, this will continue to be something that you have the coordination with and necessary with the wildlife officers and health professionals and so forth.
You know what
So
the CDC also does need to worry
very
about
much,
with regard to hunting,
appreciate your
and specifically with regard to duck
coordination
hunting,
and support of
is
that,
avian flu.
as we
Also a problem in Ohio.
it's a big issue that not a lot of people
Our
talk
bird flu
about.
infected
It's kind of
ostriches
an-
here in
a
Canada
niche issue, but it's
infected some
important.
other
So,
wild bird, which made its
thank
way
you, and Mr.
to
Terrell, you'll back
the
the rest
great
of my
state
time.
of Ohio.
Senator Hessen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Dr. Schwartz and Mr. Kaufman. It's good to see you both. Congratulations on your nominations, and congratulations and thanks to your families as well for supporting you in this. Dr. Schwartz, just a few minutes ago, you said in response to a question from
Such a
Senator
weird
King,
thing to say,
you will always
congratulations to
follow
your
the
families
law.
for
Mr.
being
Kaufman, I
supportive.
assume that you would say the same thing.
That is correct.
So just to be clear, if the President of the United States instructs you to take an action that would break the law, will you follow the law or follow the President's instruction? Dr. Schwartz?
The president would never ask me to not follow the law. but
The
I will
president
always
would definitely ask you to
Mr.
not
Kaufman?
follow the law because he does that all the
Thank you. And
time.
Dr. Schwartz, there are multiple examples of the president actively instructing people to break the law.
Indeed.
Over and over again. So I hope
And the
you will
president
update
himself
yourself
breaks the law
on that,
over and
because
over again.
It's not a
So,
satisfactory response to say. he would
Indeed,
never
it's
do
not
that.
a satisfactory response.
Dr. Schwartz, the CDC director is responsible for
But,
protecting
you know, I
Americans
think
and especially
Erica
children
Schwartz
from
certainly
life-threatening
has had
disease
her
outbreaks.
training to make
If
sure that she
Secretary
comes
Kennedy
across
ordered
as
you to stop
a
promoting
very
the flu vaccine
loyal
during
supporter.
a deadly flu season, would you carry out that order?
Senator, when I was the Deputy Surgeon General, I worked at the Office of the Surgeon General. And one of the things that was very concerning was that the Surgeon General had a number of campaigns, public health campaigns that he wanted to do. And yet we had very limited resources.
Yeah, ma'am.
So-
Okay.
I'm asking you a different question.
Jerome
I have
Adams
limited
not
time.
being able to
So
have the
if you are
resources to
instructed
do the Surgeon
to
General
stop promoting
campaigns
the
he
flu
wanted to
vaccine
do is a
during the
very
flu
different
season,
question
would you
than
carry out
this.
that order, yes or no?
We had to prioritize what we could focus on, what we couldn't
Look,
focus on.
I'm going to stop you
This is
again.
a yes or no
This isn't a
question.
hypothetical question. The flu season last year killed almost 300 children.
It did.
And we have clear data from the CDC that the best way to save children's lives is by giving them the flu vaccine. Nevertheless, in the middle of the deadly flu outbreak last year, Secretary Kennedy personally directed the CDC to immediately stop all promotion of the flu vaccine.
It was a from
including
wild to mild
promotion
campaign.
campaigns that were already planned and paid for.
And
So
the
I wanna give you a
emails about
chance
this
to answer again. If the
are
secretary
straight up
ordered you
Orwellian.
to stop promoting the flu vaccine during a deadly flu season for children,
Would you do it?
carry out that order? Yes or no?
So Senator, I don't speak in hypotheticals, but I
This isn't a hypothetical. It happened. I've got
happened.
the email if you want to see it later. So yes or no? Are you going to protect our kids, or are you going to follow an uninformed
Yeah.
order?
Good for
from
you,
the
Maggie.
secretary?
Senator, I will always protect our children. I
So
will
you
protect
would
the health of-
refuse that order? Yes or no?
Senator, my understanding of what happened back then was that the secretary has various priorities. And as he's looking at his priorities, in terms
Including
of what
getting rid of
to fund,
vaccines
what not
wherever
to fund.
possible.
That's, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. You just heard Senator Kane talk about the
Indeed.
appropriations process. The money was in the budget. It was there, and it protects and saves lives. And your answer is really disappointing. Let's go on to another issue. Federal regulations and decades of precedent
You know,
make it clear
I
that
think
if
Erica
confirmed,
Schwartz is
you would be at the
probably
top
a
of the
really
chain of
great
command for
doctor,
vaccine
probably
recommendations to the public
really great
in the United
serving the
States.
country.
So, Dr. Schwartz,
she's
you
trying to do
agree
that now
you will
because the
be at
commander-in-chief
top of the chain of
is a
command
prick
with regard
and
to
a liar
final
and a
vaccine
rapist, and
recommendations.
she's trying to
Senator,
follow
my
his
understanding
orders.
is when the Advisory Committee on Immunization
Very
Practices makes
disappointing.
a recommendation regarding vaccines, they've been doing this since the 1960s. The CDC takes those recommendations. The CDC director will work with his career scientists, work with the chief medical officer of the CDC to analyze those recommendations, look at the evidence that the ACIP used to make those recommendations. And then the CDC director certainly can make that decision regarding should they accept or not accept those recommendations. But I
You know what
also
she's doing
understand,
right
and I
here?
could be
She's
wrong
leaving
in this,
herself
that
a
the
window
secretary ultimately has the policy decision
to do what
regarding that.
Kennedy
Let me
wants.
update you. The president here is clear, and even the recent charter that Secretary Kennedy's new ASIP will operate under makes clear
If they
that
can
the
manage to get the
recommendations
charter
go to
done.
The CDC director. The CDC director, after consultation, examining the recommendations, all the things you just said, decides whether to adopt those recommendations or not. And then the charter says they inform the secretary. It is, the buck stops with the CDC director when it comes to
Indeed,
vaccine
it sure does.
recommendations. So do you commit that you will consider and make decisions on vaccine recommendations from scientific experts without political interference from outside the chain of command, including Secretary Kennedy or President Trump?
Senator, your premise is interesting. I don't think the secretary or the president would do what you just said.
The
but you have my
president and the
commitment to follow
secretary have
science
literally
wherever the
done
science may
this.
lead.
The secretary has interfered with vaccine recommendations to the point that
He
has
fired the
dismantled
entire
ACIP
ASIP and replaced
rewritten the
them with a
charter
bunch of
in
either
an
yes men
attempt
or
to,
anti-vaxxers. So
provide a
yes, he's
particular
done this
scientific,
before.
or I would say
Oh, I'm not
unscientific
aware
view
of
on
that.
vaccine
I didn't know
safety.
that Secretary
It is
Kennedy was
outrageous, and
doing
it is
that. I'm
making
going to
us
have to
less
look
safe.
into that
And I
more,
hope
says
very much,
Erica Schwartz.
if you are confirmed, that you will stand up to that kind of political interference. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Tuberville.
I don't think
Thanks,
she
Mr.
will.
Chairman. Thanks for both being here today. Thanks for your willingness to serve. Thanks your willingness to go through the education that you've gone through.
Oh my God.
And thanks for your dedication to our country, talking about vaccines.
Every time I hear this man speak,
would
I
hope the federal
get
government would Stay
stupider.
out of the damn vaccine business.
Oh, the
I've got
damn vaccine
young
business.
grandkids That they want them to take 70 vaccines before they're 2 years
70
old. That is
vaccines
bullcrap.
before they're 2 years
Let
old,
the parents
84,
decide that
96.
decision. That doesn't need to belong in the federal government. And if y'all want to recommend it, I'm all for that.
That's literally, Tommy,
away from
what
this
the
nonsense.
ASIP and
I
the
wanna get
CDC
something
do.
that the
They're called
administration got
vaccine
involved in. It's called
recommendations.
monoclonal.
Monoclonal antibodies.
Never heard that. But it was saving lives, and the Biden administration wouldn't let you have it unless you had the damn vaccine. That
Oh
is
my
ridiculous.
God. Okay,
That is
that's not
ridiculous.
true.
So, Mr. Kaufman, how are you going to handle that situation if and when we have our next disaster in this country caused?
The Biden administration did not prevent people from getting access to monoclonal antibodies unless they had the damn
2014,
vaccine.
Senator, thank you for the question. I had the opportunity to serve at Emory University's healthcare unit where Dr. Kent Brantley and Nancy Rival were treated for Ebola
Mm-hmm.
during the 2014 epidemic.
Samaritan's
I witnessed
Purse, by the way,
firsthand.
which is where Kent
I saw
Brantley,
a gentleman
doctor who got
was
Ebola
close,
in Liberia,
as we would say
worked.
when we serve on the front line with Ebola.
Samaritan's
compassionate
Purse
cares
is an
about what we're gonna
organization
offer
founded
this
by
time. I saw a
Franklin
gentleman
Graham,
within
who is the
hours
head of the Billy Graham
after
Evangelical
taking a dose of
Association,
monoclonal
and his
therapy
son.
come alive.
He's
So
also the
much so that he
director of
actually ordered
Samaritan's
Chick-fil-A
Purse,
for
which
him,
is a
and that's in the book.
$1.2
You can
billion
read that. I also have
a
a
year in revenue
who got COVID
humanitarian
really,
aid
really
organization. They do a lot of good work, but
went
I've got a
in Florida
Substack coming out about
and
this,
got
so you're going to
monoclonal
want to
antibody
subscribe to
therapeutic
me
solutions and recovered
because,
very, very
boy, are they not a good
I believe that
organization
with
in
the
terms
threats that
of
we face today, with the
sort of
ability to
proselytizing
identify
and,
for genome
just general
sequencing and customized
evangelical
monoclonal antibody therapeutic
badness.
solutions.
Oh
that we
God,
must be
I just
absolutely
cannot
prepared for
stand
this
listening to
technology,
this
and it
dude
must be
give
ready
his
to go
entire
to be
company's
more prepared
pitch
today
about
than
how
we've
he's
ever been
done this
before.
or that with
The
monoclonals.
previous administrations, no, unless you take the vaccine, you can't have these.
You can't
That's
have
the
these
stupidest thing I've ever
monoclonals
heard,
unless you
which
take
killed
this
millions
damn
of people that
vaccine.
shouldn't have been
That is
killed
just not
because of
true.
that
That's quite
that
simply
decision.
untrue.
We're worried about vaccines. Yeah, we got great vaccines. Let's give them if we want to. People don't want to take them, the heck with it.
That's literally
our
the current
right.
policy,
This is a free
dude. And that's
country.
always been the policy,
That's the
including
reason
under
why I
that
trust in
Biden
this country.
administration.
So, Mr. Kaufman, how are you going to get trust back into our country through your position? Because my state of Alabama, they don't trust health. They don't trust federal government. And I don't blame them, but they surely don't trust.
Yeah, it's because you guys are constantly lying
Thank you,
about
Senator, for that
shit.
question. As a private businessman,
They
one
shouldn't
thing
trust
that I
you,
would
Tommy
always do to
Tuberville.
evaluate whether we did a great job or not is we would ask our clients upon finishing the work, are we trusted more than we were before? And I think the indicators today are, well, maybe during COVID, we didn't have necessarily the best showing in public health. And I appreciate the question.
What are
because
you
it gives me a
fucking
chance to
talking
address something
about?
as
It
well.
wasn't perfect,
Earlier, I was
but
asked
like
by a
literally,
senator, are the
we
mRNA
developed
vaccines safe and
vaccines within
effective?
10 fucking
Absolutely, but
months.
you know what? I'm not going to put an asterisk because, and this is
Trump did
important.
that.
Many.
That was
millions
amazing.
and millions of people around the world took those vaccines and did not suffer.
No, it
But I
saved
cannot sit here
millions and
forget
millions
the
of
ones that
lives.
did. With any medical intervention, there will always be adverse events.
No
and
shit.
It's insensitive, and it basically, it erodes trust when we choose to write them off.
We've
when we
literally
choose to
never
fail to
written them
acknowledge
off.
that they have legitimate issues. And so, though I believe vaccines are safe,
It is a
and effective,
lie
I think it's important
that
if I'm
these
going to
severe
serve the
adverse
American
events have been written
population, that
off.
all of those individuals are
Literally,
recognized,
ASIP discusses myocarditis
treated
at
with
every single
compassion,
meeting, with every single meeting
and
of the COVID
acknowledged.
work group back when at least ASIP was competent.
Dr. Schwartz, I just got a minute here, but I'd love to hear this. Secretary Kennedy and I, we share the same desire about nutrition. I think it's more and more important every day about nutrition in our country.
I like to eat me a
because what
nice
we eat
big
is killing
steak.
us. Absolutely killing us. So what role are you going to be playing in the CDC with helping us have good food that's safe for us, that's safe for our kids? What's your role going to be?
Coach, if I can call you that, thank you for meeting with me earlier. I am all in on the Make America Healthy Again agenda. And, as I look at what the secretary has already done and the
Flip
president
the food pyramid. Here we go.
They have introduced nutrition education in medical school. And I won't tell you when I graduated from medical school, but I can tell you,
This
we did
is
not
the
have
dumbest
nutrition
thing.
education.
We
in
didn't
medical
have any
school,
nutrition
at the
education.
time when I
Us
was in medical
doctors
school.
thought that you could
The
just eat
secretary is
Snickers
introducing
bars and
physical
shit all
fitness
day
testing.
long. And Big Macs, it's all good. I definitely know all kinds of doctors with super unhealthy eating habits because they never took nutrition in medical school.
So I am fully committed, if I am confirmed as a CDC director,
don't want
to
food
continue,
dyes, none of that yellow number
focusing on
5
this
or
Make America
whatever.
Healthy Again, because we're looking at those things that are happening that to prevent diseases, and that's exactly what I've done my entire life as an occupational medicine physician. I'm all about looking at those upstream effects, looking at those things that we can prevent diseases and continue to make America healthy again.
Well,
At least she didn't do
Work
the
on
food as
nutrition,
medicine thing.
Work on physical fitness, work on exercise, because this damn thing right here is killing our kids and killing everybody in this country because they're sitting around looking at it all day long. And if we don't do something about it, it's going to be our fault, not our kids' fault. Thank you.
Oh, for God's
Senator
sake.
Kim.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Dr. Schwartz, I wanted to start with you. I was proud to be a career nonpartisan federal worker before in the civil service. I'm hearing from many across our government, but a lot at the CDC about low morale, especially after the big cuts last year. How are you going to try to address? How are you going to try to rebuild and give a sense of the trajectory of the CDC going forward?
Senator, thank you again for the question, and thank you for meeting with me earlier. When I think about trust, I always think about a particular instance in my career. I was the HIV program manager in the Coast Guard, and I had to tell a young Coast Guard.
I'm asking about specific to the CDC. What are
Yeah,
you going to do in your first
I'm so sick of these
10
Coast Guard
days,
stories.
First 20 days.
Senator, the reason why I was explaining
talk
this
about
story
your
is
fucking
because
job.
This Coast Guard member needed to trust me. He needed to trust what I was telling him about his HIV diagnosis. And the one thing he had to understand is that I truly cared about him. And once he understood that, he was able to ask questions. He knew.
So
he
that's
could
what you're
have a
going to
wholesome
do in
career
the
Coast
first 10
Guard. He
months.
knew he
You're
could
going
have a
to
wholesome life.
show people that
and
you
I
care
take
about
that
them.
experience to heart, because that's exactly what I would bring if I'm confirmed as a CDC director.
Everybody
These
knows
career
that I
scientists,
care
they have
so
dedicated
much.
their lives to taking care of the American people. They have dedicated their lives working behind the scenes where they get no credit whatsoever to make sure they're protecting Americans from health, safety, and security threats.
Will you oppose future large-scale cuts to CDC personnel?
Senator,
Good
what
question.
I've heard through the news, I'm a private citizen here, is that the CDC is actually hiring more people
Well, I know that too, and I hope that to continue on, but would you
They're
oppose
hiring
large-scale
people who are
cuts
not
if that was
necessarily
proposed?
the
If
same
I am
people
confirmed
that
as a
got
CDC
let
director,
go.
You have my commitment that I will work with the team at the CDC to understand what are those gaps, what are the things that are redundant, where are we having
In
those
other words,
inefficiencies
when
to
Russell
ensure
Vogt
that we
tells me to
have CDC that
find
can
more
protect
people to
Americans from
cut,
health,
I
safety,
sure
and
will,
security threats.
and I'll then
Kaufman, I wanted to
replace them
switch
with
to
his
you. I wanted to
politically
ask your
selected,
thoughts about the medical reserve corps that would be
approved
underneath
censors
ASPR.
to make sure that the CDC isn't
I think
doing
they're
any
absolutely
ideologically impure
The medical
research.
reserve corps.
Yes, sir.
The thousands of volunteers all across the country, you think it's absolutely essential?
They're not only absolutely essential, they're the tip of the iceberg should this country ever experience not only a biological attack or a natural disaster or a chemical attack. They are very, very important.
Okay.
okay,
Well, look, I'll just
but-
say, I'm glad to hear you say that. The thing that kind of confuses me right now is that
Biological
this has been
attack,
zeroed out in the
chemical
president's
attack,
budget.
natural disaster, all of those
Set-
are
I mean,
actually
when I was
different
reading,
things.
Set for elimination. What are you going to do about that?
Senator Kim, I'm hoping, I know that the president establishes the policy, but I believe the purse resides with Congress. And I'm hoping
Yes,
if
that's
you
what the
see
Constitution
importance
says.
in
It's
this,
called the
and it
Appropriations
is
Clause.
important,
As Tim
I'm
Kaine
hoping
just
that you'll make
explained
sure that those
helpfully.
individuals are well-funded and resourced.
Well, will you commit then, if you're confirmed for this, to fight from the inside and work with us to see if we can continue on with this program?
Senator Kim, even with no budget, I will make sure those individuals get the best that we can give them with what we have.
Well, I'd prefer if it's not with no budget. I mean, if the budget is
Yeah,
not
literally, this
significant,
is
I
like
think this
Congress's
is something
job.
that we should be able to continue on.
Absolutely.
Is to give you the budget.
Dr. Schwartz, just want to go back to you. You know, a huge part of CDC is about protecting America, especially when it comes to global health work. And I guess I just wanted to ask you your thoughts, whether or not the withdrawal that the Trump administration set forward from the World Health Organization makes the American people more or less safe globally.
I haven't heard about
Senator,
that.
I think the World Health Organization does amazing things. But I also agree with President Trump that it was incredibly bureaucratic. And the Centers for Disease Control was doing the heavy lifting.
Literally,
throughout
Trump
the-
has no
the time
idea
that
what the World Health
So you think it's
Organization
making us
does.
more safe to no longer be in the World Health Organization?
I think what's so brilliant is that the President and Secretary Rubio have something called the American First Global Health Strategy.
And that's better.
Yeah, it's
than
called
being a part
bilateral
of the World
agreements
Health
that allows the
Organization. It's
US
not
to shake
something that
other
we can
countries
do
down
an
as
additive to
convenient.
Membership there?
The American First Global Health Strategy, its purpose is to prevent diseases from coming to the homeland. And the Centers for Disease Control
called a
is
travel
working
ban.
synergistically with that American First Global Health
So you
Strategy.
think we're better off now than we were a year and a half ago?
I think we are protecting the taxpayer
Not that
dollars.
hard of a
I think Erica
question,
Schwartz
but,
sucks.
Mr. Kaufman, I wanted
Thumbs
to ask you
down.
what you
I'd
thought.
vote no.
Do you think we're more or less safe with the withdrawal from the World Health Organization?
Senator Kim, I think we are in the process of evaluating. You know, cuts sometimes, I think it's important to remember we are,
I always thought that you try to evaluate before you make cuts.
well, we are 40 trillion in debt. And the president has asked us.
We're
to
40
scale
trillion
back.
in
And
debt.
sometimes cuts don't necessarily.
Gee, what did we
mean
spend
poor
that 40
outcomes.
trillion
It
on?
can actually lead to increased
I just want to
efficiency.
say, I don't discount the bureaucracy and reforms that are being needed, but shooting from the hip in that way, I mean, it's hurting our global reputation. It's hurting our ability to have forecasting incredibly important times.
It's going to
With that,
kill
I guess-
thousands of people in the Democratic
Senator
Republic
Banks.
of Congo and surrounding countries.
Dr. Schwartz, during the pandemic, the CDC revised its guidelines on mask wearing, social distancing, and quarantine over and over again. It was confusing and frustrating for all Americans. It was later revealed that the
'cause, like,
science
things
never supported
changed.
many of the CDC's leadership's statements or the guidelines that were put in place. What internal safeguards exist
Right.
at the CDC to
Like during
prevent
all of
misleading
2020 when the
public
CDC was run
and
by the
ensure
Trump
transparency?
administration?
Senator Banks, thank you for your letter. Thank you.
And when
for
Erica
meeting with
Schwartz
me. I will
herself was the
actually bring
Deputy
that
Surgeon
letter.
General?
Very lovely. And thank you for the question. So if I am confirmed as a CDC director, I certainly want to make sure, as you heard in my priorities, that we are being radically transparent with the American people. And so the first order of business for me is to really do a listening session with the CDC career scientists. I want to make sure I understand.
They love
what
doing
are
these
we-
listening
what are their
sessions.
pain points? What are we doing?
But I don't
as
think
the
it's a bad
CDC
idea in
to
this
help restore
case.
trust with the American public? Now, the one thing I think that is very concerning to me is that internally to the CDC, there is a breakdown in trust between the career scientists and the politicals.
Oh, gee, I
And
wonder
wanna do
why.
everything that I can to make sure that I can, and the team that's
The
already on
career
the ground
scientists and the
can help
politicals.
build
There didn't
morale
really used
within
to
the
be
CDC. So if
politicals
we
at
have-
the
if we
CDC.
have
I
the
mean,
same
sort
North
of, you know, the
Star
high up leadership positions at the
protecting
CDC are
Americans
necessarily
from health, safety,
political,
and
but
security threats domestically and
they were still
internationally,
people who were
the American
qualified
public
to
can
do
feel
those
safe and
jobs.
secure
Like they're
that we are
politically
going to be protecting them while
challenging
they're
jobs,
sleeping,
I guess, to be
while
the
they're not
CDC
even thinking about
director.
public health.
But it's
Because
still like not a
internally
career
within the CDC,
politician
one
who's getting
team,
that
one
job.
fight,
It's somebody
and we're
who's actually a
protecting the American
doctor, somebody
people
who's actually
from various
qualified
threats.
to
I
do
think it's
that.
really important after what we went through.
There
that
shouldn't
the
be
American people
politicals
deserve
at the
better,
CDC. There
and
should not be political
what happened was a
appointees
total disaster,
leading our outbreak
and they were
response,
lied
leading
to.
our disease
On another-
surveillance
on another
efforts,
question, another front,
leading
what can
our
the
efforts to
CDC do
keep
to
the
better
American people
support
healthy and to
and
conduct
work
public
directly
health.
with the states rather than over centralizing decisions?
This
at the
is
CDC
literally
level,
how the
federal
CDC
level? How can you
works.
better
The
work with
CDC
states
does
like
not
India?
centralize
So,
decisions.
Senator,
It is
thank you
left
for
to the
question.
states.
As you heard in my opening
This is
remarks,
why public
one
health
of my
responses are
priorities
so
is to
chaotic and
strengthen the
crazy.
relationship between
The CDC does
CDC
coordinate
and our
stuff
state,
federally.
tribal, local, and territorial partners. I do not want to have a CDC that is a rigid top-down CDC. I want to work with the CDC, with our state partners.
That's
to
great.
understand
That's
what
literally
are the
how it
things that we
works.
can do better. What are the things that
Like, this is how public health
they
works.
need our help on? What are the things that they don't really need
I
our
would
help
say
on?
that the
When
way
I was
that
the
CDC could be
community-based testing
better
site
is by
leader
being functional.
during COVID-19.
And
one of the
unfortunately,
things I
if she's
recognized
not
was
going
that there were
to
three types
hire
of
people,
states.
she's
There were
not going to
states
replace
that
the expertise
they
that's
needed,
been lost
they needed
from the
just the
CDC,
idea,
which I
and
don't think
once
she
they figured
can.
out how to do it, they said, "Thank you very much, government."
I don't see how
There
that's
was
going
another
to
group of
restore
states
any
that said,
kind of
"Well, we
trust
just need,
because
like,
the CDC is
resources,
still not going to
personnel,
be able to
and
work.
we're good. And then there's a third group of states that said, "We need everything. Don't ever go away, federal government." I would like for states to be more in that second and first category where they're learning how to take care of their citizenry.
Oh, come
and they're
on.
using the CDC only when they need to use the CDC.
That's literally how it already works, Erica. And the fact is, the states get the money for their state public health responses and local public health responses from federal grants that the Trump administration is also trying to take control of and cut.
Senator, I am
So
excited, if I'm confirmed, to
this woman
understand
is
what are
talking
I
about
think
a
I know what the
world
core
that doesn't
capabilities of
exist.
the
She's
CDC
talking
are.
about being
I'm
a
little bit
CDC
biased.
director
I focus
in a
on the
fantasy
original
world
mission of the
where
CDC
President Trump
back in
is
1946,
dignified and
focusing on
actually
protecting
doing a
Americans
great
from
job
malaria.
all the
I
time,
do think
where
that the CDC
Kennedy
should
is
have
not
infectious
an
disease
insane,
prevention
like,
focus.
animal
I think
cutting
over
up,
time, the CDC
like,
has had some
falconry
mission creep, and
loving
it's trying to be all things to all
anti-vaxxer,
people,
and
in a
eugenicist.
resource-constrained environment. $40 trillion.
This woman
nearly $40 trillion
is talking
in
about
debt.
things
We
like
need
they're
to
just
refocus
completely
and figure
normal.
out what
She's
should
like
the
that
CDC
dog
be.
that's
And I
like
would love
sitting
to
in the
work with
flaming
Congress,
room
with
drinking
the
a fucking
Secretary,
cup
with
of
the President,
coffee.
to truly understand, is the core mission, should the core mission be protecting Americans from infectious diseases, or should we continue to try to be all things to all people?
The core
don't think
mission
we
of the
got taken
Centers for
quickly in that
Disease
process.
Control and Prevention is exactly that. Disease
Indiana is
control and
frequently hit
prevention.
by
That includes
tornadoes
infectious
and
diseases. It
floods,
includes
especially
everything.
in the summer. Many of our emergency management officials in state and local government are really frustrated with FEMA. The CDC also has similar emergency
Well, I can see why they're frustrated
and
with FEMA
response
because
mission,
FEMA's been cut to shit.
to FEMA. What is CDC's proper role in assisting states with natural disasters?
So, Senator, I would absolutely
FEMA's not
say that
assisting
we are
states,
taking
so
a-
that's
the
what the
CDC
problem
should be taking
is.
a supporting role. Again, the CDC, in my opinion, should not be coming in, with our sharp elbows, telling the states what to do. But the CDC should really.
The
be
CDC
focusing
literally
on
does
what
not
does the
do
state
that.
Need us to do, and that's hopefully what I can.
States
continue to
invite
focus
the
on as I
CDC
confirm
to
as
come
CDC
to
director.
their
You have
states
my
when they
full
are having
support, both of
problems.
you. Look
The
forward to
real
working with you
problem
on that.
under Kennedy,
Senator.
and this has been
is it
reported
also books or
extensively,
LBR?
including by my
Also
friend and
books.
colleague Amy Maxman
Thank
for
you. It's
KFF
good to
Health
see
News.
you again, Dr. Schwartz, and
The
good to see you,
Texas
Mr.
State
Kaufman. And
Health
thank you both
Department
for your
could not
willingness
get
to
in
serve.
touch with
In
the
April of this
CDC
year,
during their
Secretary
measles
Hegseth
outbreak. They were
posted
asking
a
the
video
CDC for help, and the
where he
CDC
said,
didn't
and I
answer the
quote, "The
phone.
notion that a flu vaccine must be mandatory for every service member, everywhere, in every circumstance, at all times, is just overly broad and not rational." So, Dr. Schwartz, I want to ask you whether you agree with Secretary Hegseth. Is a flu vaccine mandate irrational
Angela
and
also
absurd?
Brooks is also a physician.
Senator, thank you for meeting with me. As you know, I spent over 25 years in the uniformed services, and I have had my share of making the mandates for influenza and other vaccines, or at least following. I didn't make the mandate, but I followed.
Yeah, I was going to say, she made the mandates?
Mandate for those vaccines.
She's a
and
mandate
I understood
maker.
why. When you're in congregate living situations, when you're in submarines, when you're on ships, close quarters, it is really important to make sure that you have what we call forced health protection. So I'm fully supportive
The
of,
influenza
in certain
vaccine
circumstances,
was
mandating
invented
vaccines,
by
for
Jonas Salk
military members with
in
the exception of-
1942.
I believe in religious exemptions.
Because
and I believe that if
we
there's a
needed
newer
to have a flu vaccine to
there-
win
there
World
should be
War
some
II.
conversation as to whether that
We
newer
needed
vaccine,
we
should
needed
be,
that flu vaccine to
Okay,
beat
so
the
you do not
Nazis in
believe
Europe.
that it's irrational and absurd to have a mandatory flu vaccine mandate in the military.
There are a lot of double negatives there, but I think that what you're asking me is, do I believe in vaccine mandates for military members? I do believe in certain circumstances, yes, there should be a requirement.
What about
to
for the
have
flu
mandates
vaccine,
in the
though?
military.
Okay. Now, he also said our men and women in uniform are forced to choose between their conscience and their country, even when those decisions pose no threat to our military readiness. And Dr. Schwartz, I know you've spent years.
Well,
overseeing
the outbreak
healthcare
of
delivery for
influenza at
Coast Guard
Lackland Air
personnel
Base
and
that
their
has now
public health and
killed
medical
an
readiness
airman
programs, and you've
who was
spoken about
unvaccinated
vaccines,
would
and
argue
how they were critical,
otherwise
as you did a
against
moment ago, to
Secretary
responding to an
Hegseth's
outbreak.
position on flu
Well, you
vaccination
spoke about Cape May,
and military
the
readiness.
Coast Guard Training Center, and wonder whether you believe that an outbreak among our armed services pose a threat to our military readiness.
It's
Senator,
in fact
as
a
you mentioned, the
quantifiable
example that I
threat.
gave was when I was in the Coast Guard, with the Coast Guard, Cape May, Coast Guard Training Center, Cape May, we were seeing increases in febrile respiratory illnesses, and it was due to adenovirus. And we were trying our best to have non-medical countermeasures, hand washing, social distancing, but nearly impossible when you have congregate living situations and you have recruits that are taping up
And
the
it's
faucets because they want
adenovirus.
to maintain A+ for their inspection.
It's adenovirus
In
that
2011,
doesn't
when
have a
the
vaccine for
adenovirus
it.
vaccine did become available, we did make it mandatory to make sure that we could actually prevent these
Okay,
outbreaks
so they had
and
an
improve
experimental
readiness
vaccine.
and improve training. And I will tell you, within a couple of weeks of us instituting that mandatory vaccine, the adenovirus vaccine, we did not see any such cases of outbreaks post the implementation of the vaccine.
Well,
So
good.
those vaccine mandates can be effective and are important. Now, also, Dr. Schwartz, after your nomination, Secretary Kennedy's anti-vaccine ally, Aaron Siri, called you the queen of mandating vaccines during your time at the Coast Guard. And so
I
what
would
is
take
your
that as such a
response to Aaron
compliment.
Siri and other anti-vaccine advocates criticizing you for supporting vaccine mandates?
Senator, I want to be the CDC Director for all Americans. I don't want to be the CDC Director just for Americans that believe in vaccines. I want to be the CDC Director for Aaron Series and people that have concerns about vaccines.
Well, actually, that's kind of a
approach
problem
this
because
position
Aaron
with
Siri would
humility.
like the
I
CDC
wanna be
Director
a
to just rubber stamp all
nation-centered
of his
CDC
suggestions so we can go out and make
I
millions
want to
of
make
dollars
sure I
off being
understand why
anti-vax lawyer.
parents have vaccine hesitancy. As Sean mentioned, I don't want to ignore them. I don't want to dismiss them. I want
Literally
to have
no
an open
CDC
conversation
director has
with
been
them.
like, I
would love
can't
to have a
wait to begin my
conversation
new
with Aaron
CDC
Siri. I
director
would love
job
to
by
understand
ignoring
his
all of the
concerns
people who
about
are
vaccines.
concerned about vaccines.
I would love to have an
Literally
open and
nobody has
transparent
advocated
debate.
for that ever.
And that's the kind of CDC Director that I would like to be.
So it sounds like you're more polite and more reasonable than Aaron Siri, but have one more question about vitamin K. It's an
Not a
essential
tall order.
nutrient, as you know, which helps blood clot. And a single vitamin K shot is a highly effective intervention to prevent dangerous internal bleeding in newborns. Yet the vaccine misinformation and confusion that the Secretary has championed for years has now created a spillover effect that is increasingly causing parents to refuse the vitamin K shot and other routine care. In April of this year, Congresswoman Schreier, a pediatrician, asked the Secretary to directly confirm for worried parents that the vitamin K shot was safe, and he refused. Can you confirm for us today that the vitamin K shot is safe, and would you recommend that parents get the shots for their babies?
Senator, I can confirm that the vitamin K shot is safe.
Indeed.
I do worry, like you, about conflation of vitamin K with other vaccines that parents may
With
be
other
concerned
vaccines.
about.
It's not a
vitamin K
vaccine,
can
it's literally a
absolutely
fucking
reduce,
vitamin.
The hemorrhaging in children, newborns.
It's in the name.
I absolutely believe it is safe and it's effective, and I urge
And
all
it saves
parents
babies'
to
lives.
get
You should
the
make
vitamin K
sure
shot.
that your kid
Thank
gets
you.
a vitamin K
Senator
shot when
Hall.
it pops out.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the nominees for being here. Congratulations on your nominations. Dr. Schwartz, if I could just start with you. I want to ask you a question that I'm getting a lot now at home in the state of Missouri. And it's a question for which I don't have an answer because I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist. But we have a lot of data centers in the state of Missouri. More and more, 60, I think, right now in my state, many more coming online. Nationally, of course, I think there's something on the order of 4,000 with another 3,000 planned as soon as this coming year, maybe by the end of the calendar year. Here's my question to you. I get asked now pretty regularly, I would say constantly, about the health effects of living near a data center, which more and more people in my state do by virtue of their proliferation. Things like the effects of electromagnetic fields, neurological issues associated with the industrial drone, as it's called, constant noise. Now, I don't know the answers to any of this. And Secretary Kennedy and I were discussing it when he was sitting where you were just a month or two ago. His comment to me was, and I want to make sure I quote him accurately, he said to me, this is his quote, "The risks to me are horrendous." The risks to me are horrendous. And he said that HHS was going to study the issue. My question to you is, do you know, is the CDC currently doing any kind of study of the health effects of living near one of these massive industrial data centers? Do you know?
Senator
No, but they're
Hawley,
using
I
them.
don't know the answer to that question, but I
The
do know
CDC has a
that
contract with
NIOSH,
Palantir
they do these
to,
health hazard
harmonize
evaluations.
all of
and
the
so
CDC's
the answer to
different
that
data
question
streams.
would be directed to NIOSH, which is under the CDC. So if I am confirmed as a CDC director, I would actually love to work with your staff to understand, has NIOSH done an HHE regarding data centers? They may have. I just don't know the answer to that.
Good. Well, you anticipate my next question, which is that if you are confirmed, and I believe you will be, I hope you will be, if you're confirmed,
she's gonna be
will
confirmed.
you ensure that the CDC and whatever subcomponent is appropriate does a full-scale study of these health effects so that we can figure out what the answers are? Because I just don't know what to tell people. I mean, and I say that. I say, I just don't know. I know that there's
At least
there's
he's not talking
proliferating
about a fucking
studies. A
lab
number of
leak.
studies say that there are health concerns. Of course, industry says, oh, there's no health concerns. I don't know. But I think we should get the answers, particularly as more and more Americans, we're talking about millions of Americans, live near one of these data centers. They're very controversial, as you know.
I wish
So
he showed that
will
kind
the
of
CDC
humility
and
when
its
he's talking
appropriate
about virology
subcomponents under your
research.
leadership look into this and try to get the data, the actual evidence as it relates to these health effects?
Senator, you have my commitment to work with your staff to find out exactly if an HHE has already been done by NIOSH. It could have already been done. So if it has been done, and if it hasn't been done, you have my commitment to work with your staff to understand why it hasn't been done and to find out if it can be done.
Good. Okay, good. I'm going to take that as a yes. That's I think that was a yes. I'm going to interpret it as such. Let me ask you
She
about
doesn't
another
like to
piece
just
of
give a straight
reporting.
answer, that's for sure.
The CDC collects data on abortions that are committed in the United States of America through a system called the Abortion Reporting System.
This system is voluntary, and so a number of states, not coincidentally large blue states, do not turn over any data, so that it's difficult to get a picture of just how many abortions and under what circumstances are committed in this
Right,
country.
well,
We do know the numbers are
you
going
know,
up way
my
up since
state, the
Dobbs
state of
decision,
Washington doesn't
just a few
actually
years ago. The
want,
numbers of abortions committed in the United States have gone
creepy,
way up.
like,
Well over 1 million
women-hating,
abortions last year. I'm
misogynist
sure the number,
assholes like
based on what we know so
you
far, will be higher
tracking
this
them
year. And all of
down
that
for
is
getting
just based
just
on what we
basic
can cobble
medical
together
care
without full
for their
reporting. My
reproductive
question to you
health.
is, and I realize that the abortion reporting system, there's been some talk of moving it to a different component in HHS other than CDC, but historically it's been located in what would be your agency.
Yeah, move it
So if that
to where
continues to be
the
case,
men are who
would you
can
commit
really
to
make
trying to
use
get
of
as
that
much
data
information
and,
to
you
collect
know,
the data
facilitating Gilead?
on the number and circumstances of abortions as is provided for in this system, to collect that data from these states and to work with those states that are currently holding out and not giving it to actually get the data so that we can know, we can get a picture of what really is going on here. Will you do
It's
that?
none of your goddamn business, Josh
Abortion
Hawley.
surveillance is absolutely a critical component of what the CDC is currently doing. To your point, it may be moved to another.
Boy, here are we going to get a
agency
total
than HHS.
non-answer
I
about this
also
one.
want, I agree, yes, I will look into that. But
Thank
I
you.
also want to also make sure that certain states are not conflating emergency services and hiding abortions in that emergency
What?
services case definition. We need to make sure we're pulling out true abortions and making sure that we're really having clear case definitions regarding abortions so the
true
data is actually
abortions.
accurate.
Tremendous. Fantastic.
So it doesn't
thank you for
count as
that,
an
and I look
abortion
forward to
if it's an
seeing
elective
you follow through. My
abortion.
time's almost expired, so
Or
I'll
it
just
does
flag. I
count
want
as
to
an
give you a question
abortion
for
if
the
it's an
record
elective
about another
abortion. It
Missouri
doesn't
issue.
count as an
And
abortion if
the
it's
Agency
like
for
an
Toxic
emergency.
Substances and Disease
Or
Registry, which is underneath,
those
would be
states are
underneath your
hiding
purview.
abortions
Some years
by
ago,
saying
this
that they're
agency issued a
emergencies and not
report
just like
about
an
a toxic
abortion.
landfill in my state and said that there were no health effects, no health concerns. I could just tell you, subsequent data shows that that was totally wrong. We have some of the highest cancer rates in the nation around
Oh, well,
this landfill
if
where
I were
there's
you,
nuclear
Josh Hawley,
radiation,
I'd take that
and
up
its,
with EPA
components.
Administrator
I
Lee
wanna make sure
Zeldin,
that
who
we get
wants
that
to just
science
deregulate the
corrected
fuck
and
out
that
of
we're getting the
everything
health
so
and
that all these
relief that the
companies
people
can
of
just
Missouri
pollute
need.
their little
So I'll
hearts
follow up
out.
with you on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hickenlooper, who snuck in just before Blunt Rochester would have started, you know?
Sneaking in.
Senator Blunt Rochester then.
Thank you so much, Senator Hickenlooper. Thank you to the chairman and ranking member, to Dr. Schwartz and to Mr. Kaufman. Thank you for being here and to your families. Dr. Schwartz, in the last 18 months, as we all know, the CDC has had a confirmed director for only 29 days.
Yep.
You are well qualified, but we've seen a lot of people who
So
are
is Susan
qualified
Moneras.
struggle to succeed in this administration. And
That's
I'd like
one way to put it.
understand your thinking on several CDC, key CDC and administration actions just to help the committee gauge your judgment and independence. And we had a very good meeting in my office. And it's really important as well because it's my understanding while the administration put your name forward, this was not Secretary Kennedy's choice. So you're going to have to work with him in these efforts. And I want to follow up on Senator Alsobrook's questions about when you were chief medical officer for the Coast Guard. We had a really good conversation about that as well. And just your success there, how you did mandate that the new military recruits receive the adenovirus vaccine in Cape May, and that this actually brought down the number of cases to zero.
Yeah, because guess what? Vaccines work.
And I was
incredible,
really
right?
impressed by that. But I also know that in April, Secretary Hegseth, our defense secretary, rolled back the flu vaccine mandate that had been in place in the United States since World War II.
And guess what? A guy in the military
and so I guess
died
my
because of
first
it,
question
because he
is,
died of flu and he
you
didn't
know, it
have a
was widely
vaccine that would have
reported
saved his
that
life.
the-
Might have still
that,
gotten flu.
Unsurprisingly, a major
Wouldn't have gotten
flu
that sick
outbreak
from it.
occurred at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas that prompted the Pentagon to then restore the flu vaccine requirements for new military recruits. So my question is,
that's the find
would
out
you
part
have
of fuck around
advised,
and find out.
Secretary Hegseth against the decision to roll back the flu vaccine mandate for American troops, particularly as we talk about readiness for our troops?
Senator, I really don't like speaking in hypotheticals, but what I will tell you
But you're going to
is-
have
So
to,
let's
because
not
this is
speak
your
as a
confirmation
hypothetical.
hearing.
Let's say you are actually in line to be the next.
Yeah, so you have to
CDC
talk about
director.
like what you
So
would
you're gonna
do
be
in that job. Like
thought
this is
of
what
as
normally
a
happens
medical
at a job
expert
interview.
for this country. Would you?
What would you
advise
do
that?
in this situation,
So,
which is
Senator,
literally going
I
to be your
believe,
job?
As a board-certified occupational medicine
As a
physician,
board-certified
I believe that
occupational
vaccines are
medicine
safe and
physician
effective.
who's
I have
gonna just
personally
talk
given
about some
thousands of
bullshit.
vaccines to military members for force health protection and readiness. I do understand that there are some concerns, specifically about influenza, because it has the 35 to 57% effectiveness season to season. So I can understand why certain individuals may have some concerns about mandating a vaccine that
But
is
is it
not
good medicine?
I
Is it good
believe
medicine?
personally that
It is.
influenza saves lives. And
It
vaccine
saves lives.
But I can understand why there are some concerns about mandating a vaccine that
That's not
has,
perfect.
35 to 57% effectiveness.
Literally,
season to
this
season.
vaccine was developed
I
so
wanna
that we could beat
shift
the Nazis
also
and win
to
World War II.
the
I'm not
measles
even
outbreak.
kidding. It was
The
developed by
CDC
Jonas
did not
Salk,
post
who
a
took the
single
same
message
technology
in
and went on to develop the
2025
polio
encouraging
vaccine
people to get
that we still
vaccinated
use
for
today.
measles,
So
even as we were in the midst
the military
of one of the
has
biggest measles
depended
outbreaks in
upon
over 2
vaccines.
decades.
National security and military
the CDC
readiness
also
is
halted
dependent
the wild to
on
mild
having
flu vaccine
robust
campaign and
immunization
dramatically
programs
scaled
and
back
making
its
sure that our
back-to-school
warfighters
vaccine
can stay
education
on their
efforts.
feet instead of
Will
landing
you
in a fucking
publicly
hospital
urge
bed
Americans
or
to
in the
get
morgue.
vaccinated?
Senator, absolutely. I am, as I said, I'm an occupational medicine physician. I have been vaccinating people throughout my entire 25-year plus
Yes.
career in the uniformed services.
I will
believe in
require
vaccines, but I do
the
also
military
understand that
to get
there's a
vaccines. I
large
will
swath of Americans
enforce
who have some vaccine hesitancy
vaccine
concerns.
requirements.
And I want to be a CDC.
Would you reinstate the back-to-school vaccine campaign?
Yes.
So, Senator, what I would like to
Good
do is
question.
make sure
It's
that I
just a yes or no. if
It's a
you
yes
think
or
you
no
know the answer.
question.
If not, you can say you don't know yet.
I would actually like to talk to the CDC career scientists to understand what the current resources are to see if.
Okay.
I only have 14
That's not-
seconds, and it says Senator Moody.
That's not the
So I'm
CDC
gonna
scientist's job.
jump to.
If
can I jump
Congress
to
tells
my
you to
last
do a
question
campaign, then you do
without
the
questions for
campaign
record?
because that's called the
In January,
Appropriations
Dr.
Clause of the
Oz, Dr.
Constitution.
Bhattacharya, and Dr. McCary presented a memo to then acting CDC Director Jim O'Neill recommending the U.S. adopt a narrow childhood vaccine
O'Neill, the man who
schedule based
believes that we should
primarily on a
commercialize
comparison with
organ
Denmark.
sales.
Do you agree with the memo's recommendation to no longer universally recommend all 17 vaccines?
Senator, I agree with the President of the United States who asked HHS to take a look at that said memo and to find out.
She's
if those
pro-Denmarkification.
recommendations were
We're
sound,
done.
If they were not sound. So if I'm confirmed as a CDC director, you have my commitment to take a look at that said memo to understand whether comparing to Denmark makes sense or it doesn't make sense, whether the evidence suggests that
It doesn't
the
make
6
sense,
vaccines,
Erica. I can
influenza,
tell you that
COVID,
right now,
hepatitis
and
A,
you can tell
hepatitis B,
yourself that right now if you're actually
My time-
qualified.
Unfortunately, my time has
Just
expired. and I
blanket
wanna respect the
adopting
committee.
Denmark's
And I know
vaccine
that Senator
schedule
Cassidy, we
makes
have talked about
absolutely
this
no
issue of
sense.
vaccines for a while,
Although I
particularly
would
comparing
say that
ourselves
it's
to
okay
Denmark,
if we
which is
adopt Denmark's
ridiculous.
method of
And
developing their vaccine
I will
recommendations
share
because
with
it's the
you,
same method that
while
the
I
U.S.
think you
used
are
to use.
immensely
The grade
qualified,
framework
I'm
for
very,
evaluating
very concerned
evidence and
that
making vaccine
even qualified
policy.
people have either had to change their positions or quit. And so, again,
What kind of person are you going to be, Erica? Are you going to be the kind of person like Susan Monares who will get fired rather than do something
Senator
that
Moody.
Kennedy wants you
Thank
to
you,
do
Mr.
that you know is
Chairman.
going to kill children? It's evil.
Appreciate you being here today, stepping up for important jobs.
Or are
and
you just going to
I
say
guess
yes?
Putting yourselves through this process is no easy
Ugh.
task. I'm sure the job will be hard, very hard. Maybe this is a good tryout for that. But we appreciate you being here. It's so important that we
The
have
job's going to be
people,
so
in these
awesome. I mean,
roles.
it's going to be hard. It's
it's
going to
important
totally
that
suck.
We
This is
have
seriously one of
public
the
health
worst jobs.
authorities that not only are prepared for disasters and pandemics, but can execute on their responsibilities in accordance with the Constitution. The first principle of government to protect people's rights. And boy, did most every government official forget that when COVID hit.
Can
and
say that
especially
again.
Under the last administration, although You know, in Florida, we tried to make every decision and to promote the health, safety, welfare of people through the lens of how do we also protect people's rights? And I'm listening to some of the questioning today, and I think it's important that we talk about this, because if you'll remember, there was a time when folks wanted to shut people up in their homes, shut
No,
down
that didn't
churches, shut
happen.
down
That
schools,
did not
shut down
happen,
businesses. In
ma'am.
fact, they shut down the cruise industry.
No, they
almost a
didn't.
year and a
Yes,
half
they
before I
did.
came in,
Okay.
and
They
we
shut down the
litigated
cruise
and pushed
industry.
back legally.
They did not lock people
But
down
they
in their
used
homes.
the CDC. I think they used an old quarantine law from forever ago.
The same one that Kennedy used
You know,
to
that's a
illegally
big deal
imprison
to
a
lot of
woman in a
people.
Nebraska
40, 60%
quarantine
of the nation's
facility.
cruises leave out of Florida. It affects a lot of jobs.
Sure.
And I think that there is this new almost political insanity, especially in this kind of party that seems to be taking over the Democratic Party.
What?
I mean, at one of their conventions, the Democratic Socialists, they call themselves.
Oh,
they're
here
an
we go.
Extreme authoritarian group. They want to control
Extreme
lives.
authoritarian
They
group that want to
required
control
masks,
lives.
and this wasn't like during
This
COVID,
sounds
this
so
was just
familiar.
recently, if you
Oh,
took
right.
the
It's
shot.
like you and
Masks,
all of your fucking
social
colleagues.
distancing, which, by the way, when I was Attorney General, I led a grand jury investigation which said that that was created out of thin air with no basis in science. 6-foot rule. You had to have your COVID shot to go. Oh, and you had to have your booster shot within the last 12 months. This was just to attend
To do what?
a convention. This is a party that says
It's
they
not even your party's convention, bitch.
promote their policies and their mandates and extreme central government control over every facet
How
of
is
your
it central
lives,
government control
over
to expect
individual
people
autonomy.
to get a vaccine to go
should
to
scare
something
every
voluntary
American. I
that
don't
you
care where you
totally
are
don't
on
have to
vaccines. I
go
think that is
to?
a
A literal
symbolic
convention or
argument, and it's an
conference.
important argument.
And
of,
somehow that like
in the
means
merest
that they're
of circumstances
authoritarian
where you
commies.
should force someone or have a mandate on someone. You know, Florida led the litigation charge against mandatory vaccines.
I know that's because
They
your
wanted to
governor's
tell
an
you what you put in your
anti-vaxxer,
body,
and
yes,
so
I
is your
think
Surgeon General. He's a
making
crazy
someone choose
anti-vaxxer
service
who's
and
going to
country
give so
over
many Floridian
autonomy
children
and
measles.
individual liberty. That is a discussion we need to have, and I hope you have
Oh,
good answers
for God's
that.
sake. Individual liberty. Give me a break.
But I ask you, do you believe it's the
I gotta
first
show you
principle
guys
of government?
something.
Government
I got a new
is set up
office
and should
set
be,
up in
and
here.
should be set up to effectuate protection.
And
of
my
individual
husband,
liberties first and
is from the
foremost.
Soviet Union, so I bought all this
Yes or
propaganda
no?
shit
Is that
a
why our
while
country
ago.
was established?
And now I've got great new
Dr.
home
Schwartz.
office decorations.
Thank you, Senator Moody, and thank you for meeting with me.
And you're
thank
going
you
to
for
see this
representing the great
behind
state of
me at
Florida.
some point
I
soon. It
absolutely-
says that
I
in a
agree.
communist society.
And do you believe in your service
It's
as
so
CDC
sad.
director
Like
that
he's
you are
running
going
around
to
Times
have to make
Square,
important
and
decisions
like
regarding
nobody wants
health
to listen to him play his violin.
at all
But then in a
times, you
communist
have to be
society,
mindful of
you know, he's
individual
at the
liberty.
Bolshoi or whatever.
I absolutely,
It's so great.
Excuse me, I absolutely agree with that.
I have to say.
And I
If that
think
were true, which
what
it's
we are
not,
seeing
because
now,
communism
in terms
sucked,
of
according
what
to my
the
husband. And it
insanity
sure sounded like it did
on
growing
the
up
other
here in
side
the
of
U.S.
the aisle
But
in terms of the things that they want to
we're not
mandate
actually
and cram down
Democrats
the
are not
throats of
actually
Americans and how much control
Democratic
of
socialists
America
are not actually
they want.
Soviet communists, and it's
We
not
have
actually
to
an
be asking
authoritarian
every
state.
nominee
And
what they
you
believe
know,
the purpose of
they're
government
not
is.
actually.
Because we are
These people
confronting
are not
now
actually for
people that
freedom.
believe America should be something that it wasn't meant to be.
Right, like
have
you,
to
who
have
want it
good,
to be a
strong,
fascist
bold,
state.
courageous leaders taking on these jobs that understand the evolution of this country, the success of the country, and what it was built on,
Into
and
a
why it
fascist
exists,
state.
and why we have been so successful. So thank you for taking on these roles. I do want to ask you really quick.
We've been
there
so
are-
successful
Florida
because
is
we
home to more
invested
than
heavily into
10,000 World
science.
Trade Center health program
And we
members.
believe that
It's
people
the
should be
largest
free to live their
population
life without
outside
disease.
the New York metropolitan area. There's been no clinical center of excellence that exists in our state. As you know, your agency will oversee and administer the World Trade Center Health Program, which provides healthcare for 9/11 related conditions. Congress has previously encouraged the CDC to look at creating a center outside New York. They haven't done so. I think this needs attention. We have such a large population in Florida, thousands. I know it doesn't shock anyone, but a lot of people have moved to Florida from New York. Thousands
we know
of people.
that.
We could really be a site. I'd ask you to commit to examining that.
Yes, Senator, you have my commitment to look into that.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This will be Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaufman, as you know, last year, the administration abruptly canceled 22 projects, rough justice about $500 million. in research on the mRNA platform to address disease. I've been led to believe that you supported the cancellation of the research funding.
That is correct, Senator.
And a few months ago, there was major news showing that mRNA, the platform of mRNA, could be a promising, perhaps transformational treatment pathway for patients with pancreatic cancer, which I'm sure, as you know, pancreatic
Melanoma
cancer
too,
is
bunch of
probably
other different
one
kinds of
the most
cancer.
deadly forms of cancer. Less than 13% of the people that get it survive 5 years. So if mRNA research like this is being canceled, how can we begin to make sure that such a promising pathway is being adequately investigated?
Senator, thank you so much for the question. mRNA platforms are extremely promising. In fact, we're going to need them. We're going to need them to deal with the threats that are coming tomorrow. NIH currently is doing hundreds of millions of dollars of research in mRNA
Right, and that's
platforms for cancer,
NIH's
just as you
job. It's not
discussed.
really ASPR's
The
job.
mRNA cancellations that occurred, those mRNA cancellations that occurred were for the development of new mRNA vaccines. And this
Right.
is the issue, that this is the reason why I
Including
support
by
this
your favorite agency,
I
BARDA.
believe we have hundreds of millions of people that were vaccinated with the first ever mRNA platform, the COVID-19 vaccine. First ever. We have so much.
It wasn't
we
the
can
first
learn.
ever, actually.
How to
Many,
improve it.
many
Why
clinical
did
trials have been
most
going
people
on with
not
the
have
same
a problem? Why
platforms.
did some people have a problem?
The first licensed one.
If we had so much to learn?
The research was development of new, using new viruses. The research, in my opinion,
No,
should
it
be
wasn't
redirected
using
to
new
learn what
viruses.
worked well with
Many
the
of them
mRNA
were
platform and
against
what didn't, because
coronaviruses
it was
and
the
flu.
first interaction with human health.
So that implies we can't do two things at once.
Right.
I'm trying, Senator, I think it's about being efficient and fiscally responsible. Meaning, why would we invest in new vaccines that we could actually make better by simply asking questions of the population today?
What?
worked well, what didn't?
What the fuck are you talking about? No, literally, like those new vaccines
PhD students
are
who are
for
in the
like pan
process of
coronavirus
doing
vaccines. So vaccine that you
possibly
wouldn't have to get
life-saving research
updated
into
as
things
much.
that
You
could
wouldn't
solve
have to have a
pancreatic
new
cancer.
COVID
All of a
vaccine
sudden,
because
that's
this COVID
to be
vaccine would work
stopped,
against
because
COVID.
that's
It
something
would
that's
work
looking
against any
forward to
variant. It would
future
work
use,
against other
because we haven't
SARS-related
sufficiently
coronaviruses
studied
as well in case one
the
emerged in the
past.
future.
I'm
That's what it was
prejudiced.
doing. It was a new
The studies you're
vaccine because
referring
it
to
had
specific to pancreatic cancer,
expanded
those have not
use.
been
It
canceled. Those
probably
continue
was,
at NIH.
you know, going to have better efficacy. Some of this was for new lipid nanoparticles that would allow potentially the vaccine to be taken up better, that would allow for better mucosal immunity, things
So,
like that, that would actually maybe prevent
what's
more
the
infections.
determination of which one turns out to be
This guy's full of
most
shit.
life-threatening, most transformational?
To use the mRNA platform in the way that it's designed to use, which gives us unbelievable flexibility.
The way
if we
that it's
ever face
designed
a
to be
threat that comes out
used.
like COVID that's so novel, we're able to sequence it. We're able to then plug it into an mRNA platform and deliver it. Meaning,
Right.
even though we may have slowed the research down in that arena right now, we still have the capability today, if we are hit with a novel
Oh, we could
threat,
just
to
pop
plug
one
and play like
into
we
the
did in
old
Operation Warp
mRNA
Speed, which
platform, fire it back
by the
up,
way,
and
was a phenomenal
you know, Operation Warp
Phenomenal
Speed all over
accomplishment.
again.
My
Except,
argument would be
like,
that it took
wouldn't it
us
be better to
300
have the
days
vaccines ready to
get,
go before
you know,
something
needles
like
in
that
the arm.
happened? Or better
we gotta
yet,
get that. If we wanna
prevent something like
avoid
that from
shutting
happening
down
altogether by
global
making
economies,
sure that
we
we
need to
had
get
better
that down to
vaccines.
100 days, and that's why what that research was largely to begin looking at. How do we have an array ready to go?
Indeed.
So if we do get one of these,
Right, because it was,
as everyone
again, as I
predicts, we will
mentioned,
have
it was
another
from Sean
pandemic
Kaufman's
related,
favorite little agency,
infection.
BARDA,
I feel that
which
we should
literally
really go
funds
right then and get
research
it.
to
Our
make
goal should
things
be
like
100
for the
days, not
Strategic
300
National
days.
Stockpile.
Dr. Schwartz, let me ask you, in
Thank
April
you, Michelle,
2025,
on
nearly
Substack, who
90%
just said
of the
that my
staff at the
expertise is
National
helpful
Institute
in
for
breaking
Occupational
through the
Safety and
BS.
Health,
This is literally why I
what
do
they
this
call it,
stuff,
NIOSH.
because the fact is, you know,
90%
not
of
most
staff
people
jobs
don't
were
pay attention
terminated
to this
by
kind of
that,
stuff. It's really boring.
Doge,
Talking about NIOSH and all these agencies and all these
event.
different
I used to
things that
call
they
it
do,
Doge
and all
events,
these
like a
senators have their own pet little programs that they're
earthquake.
asking about. And,
This
you
resulted
know, a
in the
lot of the work
NIOSH,
that the CDC
office in Denver
does, the
completely
work
shut
that
down for
ASPR
a period of
does, like
time.
a lot of this is kind of boring
These
work.
positions have been
Because
reinstated,
ideally,
but as I
you don't
understand
have
it,
some sort of crisis to respond
not
to.
every
So
staff member is
keep
returned
in
to
mind that
work. Some of
P
them
and
got other
ASPR
jobs,
is
gone to different
preparedness.
places.
It's just making sure that you're ready to do
spoken about
things.
your background
So it's
in
really boring, and
occupational
they know
safety,
this.
occupational
And that's
health.
why they can bullshit about this stuff, because they are counting on the fact
trust
that
that you
most
do
people just
understand
don't
that,
follow
the
this
importance
stuff. It's
there.
not their jobs, and why would you if it's
Right
not
now
your
back in
job?
Colorado,
I mean, frankly, I
a lot
probably
of
wouldn't if it
people are
wasn't
battling
part of
great
my job.
wildfires. It's not just
But
Colorado, but
they are
Arizona,
really
New
taking a
Mexico,
lot of liberties with the
Utah,
fact that this is just
many of the western
bureaucratic and
states.
administrative and kind of boring, and it's
Our
technical
firefighters are on the
sometimes
front
and
lines,
scientific.
they're
And so I
acquiring
do
on
think it's really
protective
important
equipment to do their jobs.
to
An
be
IAS
here
officer
to
in
explain,
Denver,
you know,
at
what
that
some
time,
of
I
this
think it's
is
still
when
the
they're
national
when they're
headquarters
really
of the Wildland
bullshitting about something
Firefighting
because
Program,
they're trained to
which
say stuff
is
that's
doing
going to
everything it can
sound
to protect
palatable
those
to the American
firefighters.
people. And right now,
When we
the
need
Trump
firefighters more
administration
than
is
ever,
doing its absolute very best
why was the
to
target
try to
this
seem like
office and this,
HHS is
you know,
full
that
of
part of the
reasonable,
program,
highly
when it seems like
qualified
that should be a
scientists and
priority?
competent people. It is not, but they do
Senator,
have
it was
these
great to
people
meet
who
you, and I
are
just wanted to say
competent.
for the
In
record, I
Erica
did
Schwartz's
listen to
case,
Wagon
she's
Wheel.
very
Great
qualified.
banjo playing. So
Where I'd
thank
say
you
that
for
I
your
don't think she's
recommendation.
qualified, and I don't think
Senator,
she should be
I
confirmed.
did not know about what you just
Although
described
I think she will
happening in
be.
Denver. You have my commitment.
She won't
if I
answer
am
these
confirmed as the
questions.
CDC Director,
To me, that's
to look into that
disqualifying.
with your
But
staff and with
scientifically,
the
she
folks
is
at the CDC.
qualified. Sean Kaufman,
appreciate
same
that.
thing. This guy's an
I'll come back to
anti-vaxxer
Dr.
who said
Schwartz.
he'd rather
I'll stick
die
with
than
you, I
give
guess.
his
I was
kids a
gonna come back
COVID
to Mr.
vaccine.
Kaufman, but I will
And when
stick
he
with
got
you,
asked about that
and talk a little bit
directly,
about
he
ASAP.
said some bullshit about going to get them a serology test at Kroger. I mean,
Oh,
come
I
on,
thought I still
guys.
had
Like, it
125
makes it
left.
sound like he's got
I
a
thought you
reasonable
reset to
explanation
0.
for this
Anyway,
because he
thank you
knows
both.
about the
I appreciate
science or
you being
something.
here.
I know more about the science than Sean Kaufman, and unlike Sean
Thank you very
Kaufman,
much, Ms.
I
Chairman.
went to
Thank you
graduate
both
school
for
and got a
being here today and
PhD
your
for it
patience
too.
through all of us
So
today.
I'm
Dr.
here to
Schwartz,
tell
I
you
wanna
that he's
start with
wrong,
you.
and I'm here to
Do
hold
you
a
think it
fucking
is the role of the federal
accountability
government to be
flame to these
tracking
people's ass.
outbreaks like cyclosporiasis?
Senator, thank you for scheduling a meeting with me, and I hope to have a very productive conversation with you next week. I absolutely believe
Sounds
that
like
one of the
Patty
core
Murray's a little
missions
bit of a
the Centers
skeptic.
for Disease Control
That's
and
my
Prevention
senator.
is tracking outbreaks domestically and also internationally.
Well, I absolutely do think it is part of the critical role of it. And for everybody back home, and I think everybody's starting to realize that there is a parasite spreading today, likely through some fresh types of produce and sending people to the hospital with which doctors are calling explosive diarrhea. And here's the thing. The CDC used to conduct surveillance on this
Indeed.
very infection through a program called FoodNet. But in July of 25, thanks to Trump, CDC made reporting on that illness optional. Now we are here a year later, and we're already seeing over 7,000 confirmed or under investigation cases and over 100 hospitalizations with no single cause having yet been identified, and those numbers are growing every day. So Dr. Schwartz, you are a physician, you are a public health expert. Is there any scientific or medical justification for CDC having eliminated mandatory reporting of that parasite?
Senator, this is the first I've heard of that. Cyclospora, as you know, is a terrible, terrible disease.
This is the first I've heard of it. Like, this is literally all over the news right now. And
you would not want
I'm not a
anyone to
cyclospora
experience.
person.
So
It
you
has
were
a
unaware
cell, and
that
like,
this was canceled a year ago.
it's a
Senator,
eukaryote.
it's not-
I'm not
Okay, if
interested
you
in
are
that.
confirmed,
Like,
do
I'm
you
only
commit to
interested in virus
reinstating
parasites.
the required
However,
reporting for
I don't want to
cyclospora?
get it.
You have a commitment to work with your
And
staff.
I'm glad that
work
there's
with
people at the CDC, or
scientists
used to be,
understand
who were tracking
what can
it
be
through
done,
FoodNet
why was
because it was a
why did
reportable
it
disease.
stop, and what can we
Then
do
we could
moving
stop
forward?
these
Well,
outbreaks.
okay, it is the
And I
job
love
of
how
the
the
public
new
health agencies
CDC
to
director
catch
nominee
outbreaks
just
like this
hasn't
and
been
to take
paying
action,
attention to
and it's
any
hard
of
to
the
do when
news.
you have
She
removed
knows
the
that the
reporting
CDC's
requirement
hiring,
or fired expert
including
staff
her,
or undermined
but
trust
she
in
somehow
public health.
hasn't
So for
heard
the
about
record, to me,
cyclospora.
RFK Jr. and Trump's war on the CDC is now landing people in the hospital.
Yep.
Outbreaks happen, but we shouldn't need thousands of people to get severely ill before we reinstate programs.
You know,
and
Patty's
systems that
got,
were haphazardly
she's just
canceled. So
nailed
I
one of the
want you to
hardest things
follow
about
up,
public health,
if
though,
you
and
are
pandemic prevention and outbreak
Now,
prevention.
I'm a
If you're
huge
actually
proponent
successful
for
at
vaccine
doing your
research,
work,
which is why I too,
then it
as
looks like you
Senator
didn't do
Hickenlooper
anything.
just asked
And so
you about,
people have a a hard time
about
wanting
the
to continue to give you
canceling
money
the
and fund
$500
that
million
work
in
when it looks
mRNA
like
vaccine
nothing's
research to
happening.
BARDA,
But the
which
reality
the
is
they
nothing
prepare
happening
our
is the
country
desired
for any
outcome.
kind of future issues like we all know we've had now. And last August, they canceled that, and we know that the mRNA technology has grown tremendously.
I do
and
like
provides new
how I get a lot of
opportunities for
hearts
biomedical
whenever one of
research.
my dogs walks
You
by
said
in the
you
background.
agreed with the Secretary's
They are
decision
pretty
to
cute.
eliminate that.
That's Ripley.
I am where Senator Hickenlooper is. I don't understand how you want more research, but canceling it is okay. And I just wanted to be on the record. You are fine with that being canceled.
Senator Murphy, I think it's the type
Sorry,
of research.
sorry.
I'm sorry, Senator Murray, my apologies. Senator, I think it's the type of research that we're looking at.
called her the wrong name.
I believe that going back and learning about
Boy,
what we can
like,
improve
Patty
and
Murray
why things worked well and why
is
things didn't.
constantly
is
not
absolutely
amused by any of
critical
this
research. But
bullshit.
the research that was canceled was actually investing in new.
This is such a
platforms.
stupid
We
explanation.
would be able to be ready for the next
Right.
COVID. And I think for all Americans, we've lived through that. We don't want to live through
Nailed it,
again.
Patty.
We really need that kind of research. But Dr. Schwartz,
sure do.
you're here too. So same question. Do you agree with the Secretary's decision to cancel mRNA research funding?
Senator, this is the first time I'm actually hearing about this. As a private citizen, I certainly was not following that.
I didn't even
As
know
had
that we
discussed
canceled $500
before,
million in mRNA
technology
research
is
that
safe
directly
and effective,
impacts
and
my
I
new
definitely
job
would
at
like
the
to know more
CDC.
about, the
I just haven't
topic.
been paying
Okay,
attention
I'd
to
like ask
any
about
of the
that
news.
again,
I
but
haven't turned
Mr.
on
Kaufman,
social
you have
media. I
said
didn't
we
do
need
any
more
research
on
about what's
people
been
who
going on
received
at the
the COVID-19
CDC.
vaccine.
Totally
Well, good
prepared for
news
this
is
job
the
interview,
CDC
though.
was doing just that, but then in April, the CDC delayed and they ultimately blocked the release of a report that demonstrated that the COVID-19 vaccine was highly effective. And that study, which was
Right.
eventually independently published in JAMA.
It was
showed
acting
a
director
50%
Jay
decrease in
Bhattacharya
hospitalization
and also
from that
NIH
vaccine.
director Jay
And just
Bhattacharya,
for the record,
who did
this is
that.
important to me. This type of political interference is really
Excuse
deeply
was
disturbing.
that, you know,
It
it was
doesn't do
too
anything to
political and
instill
like
the
something
trust
about
that, we
trust
talked
and
about
stuff.
Dr.
So
Schwartz and
like,
his
I'm just going to
committee in
withhold
our
this because
public
it shows
health
that
agencies.
COVID vaccines work.
So I
And you
know
know,
I'm
his
out of
buddies
time.
over at the
I
FDA,
see my
including Lil
chairman
Vinay
has been very
Prasad,
patient with
did the same
everybody.
thing to a paper that was under consideration
I just
and
wanna
under
ask you, Dr.
review for
Schwartz, this is
publication
critical,
in the
and I
journal
know
that I'm
some
the
of my
editor-in-chief
colleagues have
of.
pointed-
Boy,
asked
was
you
I
this.
unamused
If you
to
are
find out
concerned
about
as
that.
CDC Director and Secretary Kennedy asks you to commit in advance to approving every recommendation that
Mm-hmm.
the ASIC makes in the future, regardless of scientific evidence, will you do that?
I didn't know that he did that.
Senator, the secretary would never ask me to do that.
Yes,
and
he
you
would.
might-
He
And
literally
this is
did
not
that to Susan
hypothetical.
Moneris.
As you have heard, this happened with the previous.
And even if she
Ca-
only
Susan
heard about it
Moneris,
today,
who
now
was
at least
in
4
and
people have
fired
told
and
her.
Came back here and actually told us.
This is such
that
bullshit.
she
And this
was,
is exactly why
outed
Erica Schwartz is
because of her
unqualified for
scientific
this job,
integrity.
even
So
though
this is
she is
not-
actually
not
highly
hypothetical,
qualified
it's
from a
critical
scientific
answer.
perspective. Can't answer this question.
So I'd
I
like
don't
to
believe
know,
that would happen.
Will you?
It literally
if
happened.
confirmed,
You're denying
commit
reality.
in
You are
advance
not qualified to be in charge of the
Approving
CDC.
every recommendation that ASIP makes in the future, regardless of scientific evidence.
You have my commitment, Senator.
If the Secretary of Health and Education, Health asks you not to, will you defy him and follow the advice of ASIP?
I will follow the science wherever it leads, Senator. You have my commitment on that.
Thank you.
Sorry, this
I will
dog
take
is
the
like,
Senator, the chairman's prerogative and ask a
she's
few
going to jump on
follow-ups.
me any second.
Mr. Kaufman, we've got to restore trust. You were running for office for school board. You said you hated the CDC. Boy, that's a good way to undermine trust. And I mean that, you know, kind of tongue in cheek, but no, really. That undermines trust in CDC if you're running for office and telling people you hate the CDC. What do you comment on that, please?
Senator Cassidy, Chairman, thank you so much for the opportunity to address it. In fact, there have been many statements post and many statements pre where I have said that the CDC is America's treasure. And it is, and it remains that way. In fact, I've been working there since November, and I believe the staff of CDC are exceptional. When I was running for school board, I believed in 3 fundamentals that I want to bring to
She's
ASPR
trying to
as
lick
well.
me.
I believe that they provide the best information, all of it, not incomplete, not just the good news, but also the bad news as well, everything. I believe that we empower people to make decisions. We don't make it for them. We empower people with that information to make decisions that are right for themselves and their families. And then we serve, no matter what decision is made,
Yeah, that's like
whether
literally
people chose to get vaccinated or
how
not
things
vaccinated.
go.
We serve
That's
them
normally what the
equally. We don't
CDC
deprive them.
actually does.
We don't hurt them. We don't demonstrate a lack of
recommended
compassion
vaccine
towards
schedule,
people's decisions
like the
surrounding
key
public
term
health
there
and
is
medical interventions.
recommended. They are
At the time that decision
recommendations.
was made, it was in the height with the greatest amount of sensitivity during COVID-19. I have since made numerous statements about CDC where they remain the national treasure. And at that time, heightened sensitivity, I did not agree with what CDC leadership was doing. The CDC workforce has always been the
Right,
most
during the Biden
dedicated workforce
administration.
I've ever seen. and
We
I
thought it was
absolutely
great
love
during the
it.
Trump
Thank you for that
administration, I'm
explanation.
sure.
I am almost flummoxed that you would support more research on the development of mRNA-type vaccines. Now, you speak of the need to do research on the side effects, the adverse events, et cetera, but that would either be CDC or NIH doing that research. At ASPR, you're supposed to be, ASPR, not you, but ASPR, is supposed to be supporting advanced research and the development of pandemic vaccines.
That's right.
And the mRNA vaccine, as Dr. Schwartz
Through
just pointed
BARDA.
out, is safe, effective. It is rapidly able to be adopted for a new biosecurity threat. If the Chinese fashion a designer vaccine and they release it upon the world, our biosecurity depends upon the ability to rapidly respond to it.
Fuck you, Bill
And
Cassidy.
mRNA vaccine
If
is
China
probably
makes a
almost
designer
rapid way.
vaccine and releases it on the world, that's another way of saying
You
lab
really don't
leak.
want to do research on that, man?
Because that's one of the Republicans'
Senator
current
Cassidy,
prevailing
I would always
lab leak
love to promote
hypotheses.
research. We were talking about a decision.
No, but on this in particular,
COVID
on mRNA
was actually
vaccine
originally a
as
vaccine.
future pandemic vaccine.
But he's right
Which I consider
that you
just like
could
a
make an mRNA
cornerstone
vaccine
of our
very quickly.
biosecurity,
Although I would add that
response.
China
Doesn't mean we're gonna
made an
use the
inactivated
vaccine. But to say we're not
vaccine,
gonna
the
research it?
old-fashioned way,
I get
Jonas
accused
Salk style.
by my wife all the time of
before
caring too much
mRNA
about the
vaccines
technical
were
aspects,
available in the
but-
US.
But I'm stuck on a technical aspect, and I hope you give me some time to explain that.
You got to be quick though, because
Yeah,
apologize.
bullshit, stuck on a
If there
technical
is ever
aspect. I'd
anything
love to
that's
hear
new,
this.
Senator Cassidy, that
Let's
comes
go,
out of this
bud.
novel, the mRNA platform is there, and it will be used the way it's been used in the past.
Hmm.
The current research that was being proposed was taking existing strains of things we know about.
No.
And rather than using tested and proven vaccine
Not true.
platforms like viral vectors and traditional platforms.
Not true.
Yes, sir.
during the COVID outbreak, it was the traditional viral vector that caused the thromboembolic disease.
That's right, J&J
The
clot shot.
mRNA was safer than the traditional viral vector. Now, do we not do more research on the traditional viral vector type vaccine because no, it had thromboembolic disease and people were dying of strokes, et cetera?
Senator Cassidy, if I am confirmed,
That was
I
a good
will
one,
care
Bill.
tremendously about patient outcomes.
I stopped though. The question here is, I am just again flabbergasted that you would support stopping
Flummoxed and
research on
flabbergasted.
mRNA vaccines because there were some adverse events. I mean, there's
Yeah.
an adverse event from the Aleve I took this morning for my bad.
That's
year.
right.
But that doesn't mean that we don't do continued research in non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, and it doesn't mean that I don't continue to take them.
Correct.
Because the
In fact,
risk-benefit
one was
ratio
taken off the
clearly
market
favors
because it was
them.
unsafe. It's called
There's been
Vioxx.
multiple studies of research, multiple research
we still
recently
take Aleve and
since the
Advil.
COVID pandemic showing
We still
the
take
risk-benefit
NSAIDs.
ratio,
We
for
still do
example, for
research on
pregnant
them.
women favors taking the immunization. So I'll go back to, how do you defend not doing research on mRNA vaccines going forward?
Well, moving forward, I would love to do more research on mRNA vaccines. If
No,
we're
you
looking
wouldn't.
But
at-
I'm talking about as to develop another vaccine, because CDC and NIH are the ones that do the type of research you were describing.
Yep.
The kind of retrospective.
That's not what
let's
ASPR
do a
does.
longitudinal follow-up. This is again, directly in your.
ASPR's
values.
job
You would be
is
responsible
to stockpile
for, yes, I approve
vaccines.
this or I don't approve this. And the fact that you're casting doubt upon it, obviously is concerning.
I'm sorry.
Obviously.
I don't believe I am casting doubt. I want research.
Yes, you
I
are,
want a
but
better mRNA
you're making a
platform,
bunch
but
of
I
bullshit
believe
excuses
before
for
we
that
proceed,
mRNA
we owe
vaccine
it to
research
those
being
who
canceled
had
that don't make
patients,
any
not
sense
just to those who
whatsoever. So it
benefited
either
and
suggests
did
that
okay.
you don't
We owe it to
understand how
everyone to
mRNA technology
explore how we
works,
can make the
which I don't
mRNA
think is
platform
actually true,
more
do that
viable.
or
without
you're
doing
just
research?
making shit up to justify something that was
I mean,
a
that's the whole
political
point of
decision
research,
and had
learning
no
how to do
basis
that
in
more safely.
science.
The COVID-19 mRNA vaccine was the only mRNA platform in human health ever used. It was the first time it was ever used. I think we should
Well,
be asking
there were
questions.
circumstances surrounding that. Let me go on. You had mentioned.
It was
in
not the
some
first
place,
mRNA vaccine ever
deleted
used.
LinkedIn
There have
post
literally been
about
many clinical trials for everything from
association in your
CMV, which is a
mind
herpes virus, to
between the
influenza, to MERS
hepatitis B
coronavirus, to
dose
SARS-1
and the
coronavirus.
increased onset of various things.
They have
And then saying
studied
that in
mRNA
countries
vaccines
that had
extensively before Operation
birth
Warp Speed
dose,
happened. which
They
is
have the highest rates of
precisely why
hepatitis
we were
B.
able to get
Of course,
those
that was
vaccines
misleading.
onto the market in
The
10
reason they
months.
started the birth dose is because they had a high rate of hepatitis B being passed from mother to baby.
Yep.
And if you look at the age at which they begin to have hepatitis B immunization at birth, there was no hepatitis B after that.
Yep.
It was the kids who weren't, it was the people who were not vaccinated at both that had the burden of disease.
Exactly.
So your LinkedIn post.
Because vaccines
you're
work.
uninformed,
And the sooner that
are
you give
deliberately
them,
misleading.
the more
when
opportunity
Murkowski
you
speaks
deny
about
the
Alaska,
pathogen to cause an
they had
infection
endemic
to
hepatitis
potentially
B
kill
in
somebody.
the Alaska Native population, and it's only with the birth dose that went away. Now, again, if we're talking about restoring
Again,
trust.
my
and
uncle,
either
Brian McMahon,
misinformation or-
worked for the Public Health Service Commission Corps for
Why would you
years,
say-
then worked
why
for
would
the
you
Alaska
repeat those
Native
damn
Tribal
lies?
Health Consortium. Used to
because
be the
that
director of their
destroys trust.
hepatology unit, still
And
works
we don't
there.
start getting back
He's
to
in his
where we
80s,
trust unless people
still
speak the
treating
truth.
patients.
I'm sorry to be kind of worked
Still
up about
fighting
this, but
hepatitis
I've
B.
seen people die from these vaccine preventable diseases, including hepatitis B.
My uncle has
And you're gonna be
heartbreaking
one of the
stories of
leaders in
children
our
dying from
response.
hepatocellular carcinoma from liver cancer because they got
respond to
hepatitis
that,
B when they were babies.
Senator Cassidy, for 30 years in public health, whether I have been at a university teaching in classes or I was in Trenton, New Jersey with the postal
Teaching in
employees
classes.
post
This guy did
anthrax
like safety
exposure,
training.
I have promoted vaccines as a public
But I'm
health.
speaking
effort.
specifically about that
Mm.
LinkedIn post.
The LinkedIn post that was pulled down for multiple reasons. I'm a Gen Xer.
I'm
my
on
social
LinkedIn.
media skills are not as good as everyone is today, but I saw that it was decisive, that it was actually dividing people, Senator. And I didn't want
Don't wanna
divide
do that
people
on
as a result
LinkedIn.
of that post, but that post did have a critical aspect. Within that post,
It was
Senator
causing
Cassidy, I
all
did say
sorts
that
of
I've always
problems with
believed
your
that vaccines are
potential
the gold standard
colleagues
of
and
public
network
health. It's in that same
connections.
post. And that post that
Streaming
that
live on
individuals have
LinkedIn.
misrepresented
Shout out
and
to my
mischaracterized,
LinkedIn
that I had
connections, by the
tied
way.
the infant dose to autism. That's a mischaracterization. I have simply said public health owes it to the people to take a look at why there's been such an increase in autism and allergies. And even though I mentioned it in the same
We literally
article,
know about both of
I
these
never
things.
tied it directly to the infant dose of hepatitis B.
So putting it in the same article, of course, makes a connection.
Well, so
And the
Bill
critical
Cassidy
thing
could tell you
is-
about
and
this
I
because
ask
he's a
this
board
not to
certified
be-
hepatologist.
Not to be anything but trying to illuminate. Do you understand the difference between causation and association?
100%, Senator.
So just because there is an increase of something when something begins to get done. I once vaccinated a young lady for hepatitis B. She subsequently got pregnant. There's no biological way in which the immunization caused her pregnancy. That's pretty well established how she got pregnant. And so to establish an association and to imply.
My
because
baby
it's in the
daddy
same
is the
article,
HBV
and I think it would be disingenuous to suggest it wasn't an
Like,
attempt to imply.
third booster.
The United States began recommending hepatitis B immunizations for infants in 91. Can you guess at which age most children are diagnosed with autism? 5 years old. If you add 5 years to 1991, you'll notice a sharp increase in autism rates around that time. Now, that looks like it's trying to establish.
When
a
did they
connection.
start like diagnosing people with
Senator
autism
Cassidy,
all the time?
I again believe in
People
vaccines.
become
I
more
believe
aware
in
of
the
autism
infant dose of
and
hepatitis
there were
B. My
better
children are
diagnostic
vaccinated.
criteria for
I
it, and
believe
people
hepatitis B. I
appreciated
believe
that
vaccines
neurodiversity
have
is
eradicated
something that
smallpox and
is
changed
much
the face
broader
of
than
polio.
just
And,
the rigid
Senator
old
Cassidy,
definitions of autism
I mean,
that were
I know what I
very
wrote.
severe cases.
I know what I did.
I
believe
am
that
personally
autism
also
and
somebody who has a
allergies in this country
neurodivergent
have
condition, and
significantly
it's
increased. I
extremely
believe we owe
common.
it to the general public to explore and
So
identify why.
maybe
Vaccines
the
are
reason why
safe and
cases
effective
started
and do
going
not have
up
So
is
if you're
because
elected- if you're
doctors
approved
were
for
more
this
aware
job,
of it. We knew more about
would you
it
advocate for
because of research
changing
that
back to our previous
shows
topic.
pretty much universally that
Research
there's no
for the
association
use
with
of the
vaccination
mRNA
or allergies for
platform
that matter.
to develop, to see its potential, not to foreordain a conclusion, but to see its potential in fighting future respiratory viruses or any other type of illness for which it could be potentially applied.
Senator Cassidy, if I am confirmed, I will fight for the very best mRNA platform vaccine.
finest, most
strategy
artisanal
for all Americans
mRNAs.
Should we face
That's not the same answer.
I will
Only
fight
the
for
best,
research, Senator
like
King.
most American mRNA vaccines in our strategic national stockpile for this ASPR.
I have a sense
mean,
that
come
you're way
on.
overprepped for this. Because in our conversation, we spoke as two doctors. And here I spoke as, I felt like you were always trying not to answer my question.
Mm-hmm.
Which was disappointing.
It's very disappointing.
So
Erica Schwartz got murder boarded by the same people that
don't
did
know-
Casey Means, but
You don't know.
at least everybody
Kennedy
knew that
asked
Casey Means was a grifter when she
Menarez
showed up. I think everybody
to
expected
approve
more from Erica
blanket
Schwartz. I
ACIP
certainly did.
recommendations, then they didn't prep you on that. Because that's public knowledge. Now, he may
Seriously.
dispute it, but that's public knowledge. And to claim that's a theoretical does a disservice to you.
It does.
It really is.
It's disqualifying.
And I'm here personally liking you, but feeling as if I'm having to represent the public health of the United States of America.
Yeah.
So that it's not taken over by people who are ideologically inclined and looking to file a lawsuit, not looking to prevent disease.
Although, pretty rich of you to say that, considering
so-
you were more than happy to
Have you
be
ever
going
fired
along
someone-
with it before you got primaried.
I have, Chairman.
And have you stood up to a senior, to someone in charge of you, and told them that you were wrong, that they were wrong, and that you would not carry out that order?
As a very specific example, the Coast Guard wanted to transition from a paper health record system to an electronic health record system. My leadership asked me specifically what my recommendations were. It made sense to go with DOD. DOD was having a huge modernization with their EHR. Not only that, it would save the Coast Guard tremendous amounts of money. Not only that, we would be part of a broader ecosystem. Our
this is not
beneficiaries,
the
Coast Guard
same.
beneficiaries, and our active duty members
Whether
were using
what
the
kind of
DoD
electronic
MTF
health record
ecosystem.
system we
I
should
made that
transition
recommendation,
to is
very
not a good
clear
example of
to
some
my
time that she
leadership.
refused
My
to take
leadership
an
said, "Thank you
unethical
for your
order.
recommendation," and said, we're going to go ahead and build our own instance of an EHR. Several years later, 60 million taxpayer dollars later, they still did not have their own instance of an EHR. They looked to me and said,
So in
"Dr.
other
Schwartz,
words,
what
they
was it that
didn't
you
listen to
recommended
you."
again?" And I said, we should be going with the DoD EHR. I said many but sirs and but ma'ams throughout that 5-year, 6-year period as they were trying to create their own instance of an EHR. I was ignored. Guess what? To this day, the Coast Guard is using the DoD.
So in other
EHR
words, you
for
didn't
my
successfully
recommendations.
stand
There
up
was
to
a
your
period of time
superiors. You just
where my
disagreed with them and they
recommendations
ignored you
were
and
not
they
listened
still
to.
managed to
I
not do
respected the
what
chain
they
of
were supposed to
command.
do.
I disagreed in private, but I certainly have had many instances where, like that, where my recommendations were ignored.
So in other
by the
words, you
policymakers.
respected the chain of command and
It's a little bit of a
disagreed
different
in
scenario than what I
private.
gave you. If you're presented with the absurdity to believe that the
I think that
demographics
Bill
of the United
Cassidy's
States are
asking, are
similar
you
to
going
those
to
of
fucking
Denmark,
follow the chain of
and
command and
therefore we should
disagree in
adopt
private
Denmark's type
when they
of
ask you
recommendations
to
versus
rubber
the knowledge
stamp
that the United States, our
disinformation
demographics
about
are
vaccines
quite
or
different.
to just simply take vaccines off
Would
the
you just carry
schedule
out the order?
altogether?
Because you'll be at the place where the rubber hits the road. And this is not a theoretical.
No,
because
this is
we hear
going to be
coming
your
down.
job, your literal
But
job,
anyone
Dr.
that
Schwartz.
knows an iota of our demographics knows we are not Denmark.
Chairman,
Indeed.
you're a physician, I'm a physician, and you know exactly when you've had a question about something, some issue, whether it was something with hepatology, you didn't just look at American-based studies. You looked at something, some studies that were in other countries. You yourself made the assessment that, hey, listen, we are different. The demographics are different. My recommendation is not that we go with the Denmark study. What I was trying to say was this: the president asked the secretary, take a look, do a double click. Maybe there's nothing
Do a double
there.
click?
Maybe there's something there.
Of course, that's
No,
not my
see, the
question.
secretary then took that
question
and
is,
removed 7 vaccines from the
recommendations
childhood
was
schedule,
made
including the HBV birth
to
dose. And
implement
that
a
one
system
got
which is not
ushered in by ASIP. So
for
that one's binding,
U.S.
actually.
demographics. One example.
But you know,
Alaska
Erica Schwartz
natives
hasn't been keeping
have a
up with
high
the news.
incidence
She's a
of
private
mother-to-baby
citizen and all,
transmission
so
of
she doesn't know
hepatitis B.
anything about this.
Denmark doesn't have that.
Mm.
We are different than Denmark.
Right.
And so if they said in Denmark they don't do it, we're not going to do it. What do you think? I mean, it couldn't just be, I'm going to take the order and execute it even if I disagree. It has to be something firmer. Stop. No. Time out. This is wrong. Dr. Menarez did that. And I think she will go down in history with great credit,
Yeah.
even though I
Agreed.
suspect she's being harassed. But that's
I
the courage it
suspect
takes
that
to
too.
lead the CDC. So my question to you in that situation, would you just accept ACIP recommendations even if they were attempting to adopt a system not appropriate for our country?
Chairman, I would never, ever accept ASIP recommendations without doing a deep dive into what those recommendations are. Or
Not
were.
an answer.
I would work with these career scientists at the CDC. I would work with Dr. Jennifer Schufert, who's the chief medical officer at the CDC. We would
Boy,
look at
has
the
she
evidence.
been
Where are they
trained
getting
to
the
just
evidence?
recite
Are
this
these
like a
randomized
trained
controlled
monkey
trials?
every
Are these
single
cohort
time. I will
studies?
do a
Are
deep
these test
dive. I
negative
will
design
talk to
studies?
this
We would make sure we
anti-vaxxer
understood the
that
weight of
Kennedy
the
has
evidence
put
that they use to
into
make those
the chief
recommendations.
medical
And if the weight of the
officer role
evidence
at
isn't
CDC.
there, or if the science is questionable, you have my
If the science is
commitment that I would
questionable,
not
do you think
at
that
all
ASIP,
ever agree to those recommendations.
at least if they're using the grade and
thank
ETR framework that they are supposed to be using, do you think that ASIP is sending unsound
Thank you again
recommendations
for both
through to the
being here. It's been a
CDC?
long meeting, so thank you. For members wishing to ask questions for the record.
Oh
those
boy,
will be
it has
filed
been a
tomorrow,
long meeting. I'm right there
July
with you,
16th.
Bill.
We stand adjourned.
Thank God. Okay. Well, that was bracing and somewhat brutal, and it's been 2.5 hours, and I actually have some work to do, so I'm probably gonna go pretty quickly here. I gotta also hang up my Soviet propaganda in my new office and find a way to make sure that I also continue to keep Buzz Aldrin on my wall. So anyways, I have things to do, but thanks so much for everybody who stuck around with me for all of that shit show. I think that, I'm a little surprised that Erica Schwartz was so obvious about the fact that she is unwilling to answer a question in a direct way that has to do with, are you going to be a political loyalist or not? And I think her answer to that, based on the fact that she kept trying to answer different questions, that she essentially pretended not to know anything about the CDC or anything that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has done or anything that has happened, or Susan Monera's getting fired, or $500 million worth of mRNA vaccine research getting canned, or the wild to mild flu vaccine campaign that Congress appropriated money for getting canceled arbitrarily, or the smoking office getting canceled, or Pete Hegseth saying that we don't need flu vaccine mandates. And her answer every single time is, this reminds me of some other totally different situation when I was in the Coast Guard, where I did this, and not answering the question and really pretending that she has no clue about any of this stuff that's going on, and Trump would never ask her to break the law, and Kennedy would never ask her to approve something that wasn't scientifically valid. And I have no idea that the CDC is publishing shit on its website that says that vaccines might cause autism, and on and on and on and on. And she thinks that it's enough to say that, when confronted with, are you going to make anti-vax policy? Are you going to make policies? And to be clear, it's not just that I disagree with anti-vax people, or I'm enthusiastic about vaccines, or I want more grant money to work on vaccines or whatever. The fact is, if you deny people vaccines that are known to be safe and effective, you are putting them at risk of death. You are putting them at risk of severe illness, injury, and death. And to me, that is an evil thing to do. As Bill Cassidy said in his opening remarks, it is evil to prevent people from getting access to medical interventions like vaccines that would prevent lethal illness. And as he correctly also pointed out, children in the US are dying as a result. We are currently having a situation with measles where we have already exceeded the number of measles cases that we had last year. We will have at least twice that number this year. We aren't doing anything to stop this measles epidemic, by the way, and vaccination rates continue to go down, down, down in many communities. We are going to be dealing with measles for the foreseeable future. It will take years to eliminate, and the damage that has already been done by many of these policies is hugely consequential. It's going to be a huge economic issue going forward. It's also a huge national security issue. It's a huge issue in terms of our healthcare capacity. And so it's also something that's very relevant to the ASPR, because what's going to happen if we have a really bad flu season in a community that's currently being overwhelmed with measles? And I don't know how much you guys have been refreshing yourselves on measles. I mean, you're probably going to have to, and it's going to be unavoidable. I don't know if Dr. Schwartz has been catching up on her measles reading. She doesn't seem to know that there's anything going on. So maybe she doesn't know that there's actually a crazy measles epidemic happening, or that we're about to lose our elimination status come November. But in any case, to me, it is completely disqualifying to ignore the risk of having a bad flu season, having just a normal thing that we can't completely prevent, but we can seriously mitigate. We're taking away the ability to mitigate it. We're putting more and more people at risk for it. What happens when there's people who need ventilators in a community and there's no ventilators available because they're full of kids? I mean, this is what we're talking about here, and this is what's going to start happening in communities all over America. And so for Erica Schwartz, I mean, my hairs on my neck stood up when she said radical transparency for the first time, because I think under her leadership, what we're going to see is putting Band-Aids on things just enough so that it can look like CDC's doing something, and trying to cover up the fact that these things are so widespread. And cyclospora is a great example of this, right? So I'm not into all of these parasites, and I'm really not into foodborne stuff. You know, I'm on medical leave right now, and I haven't really talked about a lot of the reasons why, but one of them is because I actually have some kind of gastrointestinal problem that we still don't really know what it is. And I do a lot of vomiting, so I don't like to actually worry about those foodborne things. I have enough of that problematic stuff in my life. But cyclospora is one of these things that you can't really cover it up when enough people get it, because, as was pointed out, it causes explosive diarrhea. So enough people get explosive diarrhea, and then, you know, eventually there's no amount of sort of, oh, well, I didn't know that that was happening. I mean, to me, it's insane that she had no idea that there's cyclospora outbreaks happening, because as much as I don't even live in the US anymore, just following the news, being on social media at all, turning on the TV, like this is literally, it was on the National last night on CBC, the news in Canada. So, I mean, it's impossible to avoid this unless you're living out in the middle of nowhere, like off the grid, like not checking anything. Which, if I were being interviewed by the Senate Help Committee for the job of CDC Director, I don't know, I might go through the news and see what kind of CDC director things are happening, so I could maybe talk about them and talk about like what a great job I do as CDC director dealing with them. I would certainly be aware that cyclospora was happening, but it's very clear to me that Erica Schwartz, whoever prepped her for this, as Bill Cassidy said, you obviously got murder boarded, which means that basically she got together with a bunch of consultants, her political people who are handling her, who prepped her for this, and they just asked a bunch of questions that they anticipated that she would be asked that would be difficult, and she practiced giving these non-answers. And so what we saw there was, I think, somebody who for her entire life and career has served with distinguished service. She has served our country with distinction. She is very competent. She is a scientist and a physician, and she would normally be an extremely great choice for CDC director. But we saw somebody with that background doing something that she hasn't been very experienced with in her career, and that is lying to the Senate about what kind of job she's going to do, because she's clearly going to do whatever Secretary Kennedy, I think, wants her to do. And it was incredibly disappointing to see her essentially resort to playing dumb about things that the CDC director would really, really need to be dealing with. And because of that, I think, I don't think she's qualified. I think she disqualified herself by her actions, because on paper, she's sort of like the anti-Casey Means. She's extremely qualified to be the CDC director. She's a dream CDC director in many ways, and it's quite clear to me anyways that she does care deeply about the medical and scientific components of her job, as well as the service to her country, which I find commendable. But the fact is, she's not serving her country if she comes into the Senate and lies about what she's going to do, because she is going to just pretend that, oh, President Trump would never ask me to break the law. What do you mean President Trump has broken the law? Like, the man is literally a convicted felon, and judge after judge just keeps reaffirming over and over again that he raped E. Jean Carroll, which, as a survivor of sexual assault, I have to say I have been having a very, very difficult time looking at any kind of news lately, because it's nonstop discussion about how everybody running our government basically is a fucking rapist. And I already know that they hate women, which we saw certainly when Josh Hawley asked his little question about why aren't we getting access to all of those databases that has records of women getting abortions in blue states. Boy, I can't think of anything nefarious that the Republicans would do with information like that. And her response was like, oh, well, we should make sure that abortions aren't being hidden in emergency services data, because you know how those Democrats like to hide the number of abortions all those sluts are having in these blue states. And I just, the fact that those were her answers to these kinds of questions, which I think in this particular climate are questions that absolutely need to be answered. Are you going to be political as the leader of the CDC, or are you going to follow the science? Now, she kept saying, I'm going to follow the science. I do everything with my greatest commitment to scientific integrity. But she's not, obviously. If she's denying reality, if she's denying the fact that Kennedy is an anti-vaxxer who has literally put policies in place that have killed people, and that's a whole separate project, and this is why I'm going to go soon. A whole separate project I'm working on is that I'm actually trying to quantify that impact. I'm actually trying to quantify the number of people who have been killed by HHS policy under Secretary Kennedy, including his decision to deschedule a bunch of vaccines, a decision that has now been reversed by the courts. However, I think that they're going to keep trying for all of this stuff. And they discussed Aaron Siri. For those of you who don't know who Aaron Siri is, he is Great Value Ali Velshi impersonator, who is a trial litigator in vaccine injury lawsuits. And he very close, obviously, to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is also a litigator, whose son is a vaccine injury litigator, and they all sue people for vaccine injuries and make a lot of money together. And, we're having these conversations where in Senate Help Committee meetings, they're talking about Kennedy involving Aaron Siri. He gave a presentation that was absolutely insane at the last ASIP meeting that happened in December of last year, because ASIP hasn't been able to meet since the judge suspended them. The charter that was discussed at this Help Committee meeting is still not really in place, and they're having a hard time getting ASIP together, because do remember that all of these people are also incompetent. Now, Erica Schwartz would be an exception to that rule, but she would still be incompetent, because even though she herself actually is competent, she would not act in a competent way. She would not actually be the nation's CDC director. She talks a good game about not being paternalistic and top down, and she's going to be everybody's friend, even the anti-vaxxers. But the reality is the CDC director already does that. It is not the CDC director's job to be beloved by the American people. The CDC director's job is to make sure that the CDC is serving the American people, is to make sure that the CDC is doing the work that it's supposed to do. And currently, the CDC can't do the work that it's supposed to do because so many people have been eliminated from the CDC. It's not functional anymore. And as Erica Schwartz, the only piece of news that she knows is that the CDC is hiring, because she's in a job interview for it. And, that there can't have been that many cuts. If they're hiring people, they're not getting rid of people. The thing is, the people that they're hiring, they're political operatives. And so they are not going to make decisions based on science. She wants to have a listening session with the career scientists at CDC who can all tell her what a fucked up place it's been to work for the last year and a half. And then she'll smile and say, okay, I'm totally going to take your concerns seriously and still do whatever the fuck Kennedy tells her to do. She's just going to look better about doing it. And that's the same thing with Sean Kaufman. I have never seen a bigger bullshitter in my life, but you know what? I have, because the biosecurity industry in particular is full of people like that. Oh boy, I don't think Sean Kaufman and I would have very similar views on biosafety, because I guarantee you that his views on biosafety are that I'm some sort of reckless, adrenaline junkie who's just trying to gain a function up some new viruses all the time. And the only way to mitigate this threat is to hire a consultant like him to put me out of business. He's an anti-vaxxer, and his bullshit excuses about, oh, I just been to the Kroger and gotten my kids an antibody test, so I was worried about myocarditis and I didn't think they needed the vaccine, turned into a LinkedIn post where he said he'd rather die. Perish, I believe was the word that he used. He'd rather perish than give his, I guess, seropositive kids the COVID vaccine, which he claims is safe and effective, but he also claims that it's totally fine to cut $500 million worth of mRNA research, vaccine research that's needed for pan-coronavirus vaccines, universal influenza vaccines. That's what that money was for. That was directly to BARDA, the agency that he loves that does research developing vaccines for the Strategic National Stockpile, which ASPR, the job that he is trying to get, manages. So I think he's pretty unqualified to be the ASPR if he's going to say, well, you know, I do love mRNA vaccines and they're so good. We could just like whip up a vaccine anytime we needed one, you know, just in case China released one of their vaccines, as one of the Republicans said, I can't recall which. Or, you know, somebody like Tommy Tuberville, Roll Tide, comes out and is like, now these damn vaccines are taking precedence over my monoclonal antibodies or whatever they're called. And it's just like, I mean, these people are so dumb. And this guy, who is, again, going to be in charge of the Strategic National Stockpile, is entertaining Tommy Tuberville's dumb bullshit, like old country boy stuff about monoclonal antibodies that are made up. First of all, like there was no rule during the Biden administration that you couldn't get monoclonals unless you got a vaccine. They work differently. There's no reason to not vaccinate somebody, and there's no reason to give not to give an unvaccinated person monoclonals. If they've got COVID and they're going to die from it, you would give them monoclonals. The CDC's not like, oh, only if you get the Fauci ouchie do you get to have access to these wonderful monoclonals. Such bullshit. Like that totally didn't happen. This stuff is all completely made up, and Sean Kaufman went along with it. And we can't have the administrator for strategic preparedness and response saying stuff that's completely not true to justify decisions that were made politically. We can't have either one of these people saying that, you know, I have a full commitment to being, you know, the utmost in scientific integrity and honor, and I will do everything for the American people. I love the American people, and that's my job. I'm not going to be some paternalistic tyrant like the Biden administration was full of. I'm going to be for the people. And that's just simply not true. They told us very clearly today that they're going to do whatever their masters want them to do, and that's why neither of them are qualified for these jobs. Unfortunately, I think that probably both of them are going to get confirmed, but I think that it is worth writing to your senators, particularly if they are on the Health Committee. I know that I will certainly be dropping yet another line to Senator Patty Murray of the great state of Washington, of which I am a resident, and I will be letting Senator Murray know that I appreciated her holding these people accountable, and I appreciate her continued insistence on confirming nominees who are going to put the science and the interests of the American people before the interests of whoever happens to be in the White House. And certainly now the eugenicist who happens to be in charge of HHS. So with that, I'm going to step off and go do some work, and I might try to get a little rest because, like I said, I haven't been feeling super great. A little piece of housekeeping. You know, I've been trying to experiment with different ways to keep you informed about all of this stuff. And I do have a couple pieces that are going to be coming out in Zeteo. So look out for those. That's going to be about the lab leak and the origins of the pandemic and Tulsi Gabbard's bullshit, like that she came out with the other day. And I'm doing more writing on my Substack, partly because it's just really exhausting showing up sometimes and doing these Substack lives. I really like having conversations with other people, but right now, the world is just such a shit show. It is very difficult for me and all of my colleagues to kind of get ourselves together to do stuff like regularly. And Jessica and I had a long conversation just about our bandwidth and our ability to like do a weekly show. And I don't think that I have the bandwidth to do a daily show, but I'm going to try. So instead of like not calling it like my daily ranting show or whatever, I'm just going to kind of do it like when I'm up for it. And that's kind of what I've been doing for the last week. I just wasn't up for going on camera, and sometimes I need a break from all of this. Sometimes I actually do have to get work done too. And because I've been sick, you know, I'm not as productive as I used to be. I'll put it that way. And sometimes like it's very difficult for me to actually do work because some of the medical issue I'm dealing with has affected my mental health as well. So, you know, it's a very difficult time for all of us. And I'm just trying to do the best I can to make sure that you guys are informed. What I found really, really helpful today was that so many people told me that this was helpful. Because I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to take up my time doing stuff that isn't helpful. But I do think that these hearings are actually really important to debunk in real time because there is so much bullshit that just gets left on the table. And the reality is a lot of this stuff is like real inside baseball with either the way the federal government works or scientific topics, technical topics that, you know, most people don't find that interesting. Like most people know what mRNA vaccines are. At this point, most people, except for Erica Schwartz, know what cyclospora is and that there are outbreaks of it and how it can happen. But, you know, sometimes like these ins and outs when people start making shit up, they're counting on the fact that you guys actually don't know about this stuff. And so that is something I think I can help with. And I really appreciate those of you who gave me the feedback today that this is helpful. I'll make sure that I'm doing this in the future. And if there's ever a way that I can address your questions, like so my daily show, my Substack Live, like if you want to see me talk to somebody, I have a lot of friends. I could get people to come on with enough advanced planning. I also could talk about specific topics, or we could do like Ask Me Anything stuff. Like I'm totally willing and flexible. I just think that right now we are in a time where people are taking advantage of the fact that a lot of people don't know about this stuff. And we never needed to in the past because our democratic government was functioning the way that it's supposed to be. We're literally not supposed to need to know about this stuff. But now, unfortunately, with our democracy under threat, we do need to know about this stuff. And since I do have the expertise to explain some of this shit in particular, I'm more than happy to do that. So if there's something I could do that would be more effective, please do let me know. And I'm trying to be better about this too. Please subscribe to my Substack, not just follow me. Now, Substack is weird, and I don't know how I feel about Substack as a social media platform. I obviously was at some point in my career very successful on the health site, and I still have a lot of followers there. But I do like the fact that with Substack, I can write longer things. We can have like these lives. There's multiple opportunities to communicate with people. So if you subscribe though, then you will actually see the stuff that I produce because the following, like, I don't even know how this notes thing works. The algorithm is so weird. But it seems to show me the things that I want to see the least, right? So my Substack notes is nonstop Epstein file stuff. So it's like constantly being re-traumatized every time I log into the site. So I appreciate the people that I subscribe to because fortunately that means that I don't have to like log into Substack notes and see people reading rape bedtime stories that are going to traumatize me and cause me to have all kinds of problems. So the bottom line here is I've been told that by encouraging people to subscribe rather than follow me, you will have a better experience with my content, and we can also chat more because I'm also trying to figure out how to use the Substack chat thing. So just let me know what you think. I mean, I don't want to do stuff like just for the sake of being on TV. It's actually, or being on camera, being streaming. I don't really like it that much, actually, even though I'm fairly okay at it. But I want to do what is going to be the most helpful for you and what is going to keep people the most informed. Because right now, I do feel that one of the administration's most effective tactics is just taking advantage of people's ignorance about things that they never needed to know about, and making you think that things aren't true. And so many of my colleagues are, either themselves not in a position to speak up about it, or they're afraid to speak up about it. And I have to say, it has taken a massive, tremendous toll on my life and career. I think it's really, really important to make sure that people understand all the things that are happening. So I just want to do that in the most effective way possible. So please subscribe to me, because then I will be able to deliver this type of communication and this information most effectively to you. And that's what I'm here to do. So please let me know how I could do that better. And thanks everybody for tuning in and dealing with the audio problems early. I'm glad that I figured it out, and I think that I have figured it out going forward in the future. So yay, production skills improving. Thanks for everybody who pointed that out and who patiently bore with me. Thank you all also who sat through like 30 minutes of the MK Ultra hearing with me talking to a silent screen. So hopefully we're not going to have any more of that either. I really appreciate everybody here. Thank you so much for joining me. And depending on how I feel, maybe I'll see you tomorrow. Maybe I will do a little ranting show. I actually do have some updates about the Bundibugyo Ebola virus outbreak. They're not good, unfortunately. But I do have some stuff coming out about Samaritan's Purse and the response so far that I think that people should know about. So maybe I will see you tomorrow. Anyways, thanks so much again for joining me. Subscribe, follow, all of that stuff. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Oh, now I don't know how to end it. Okay, bye for real. Thanks so much, guys.